Listen, bro. My mission statement, I say it every day. We restore the RP and MMORPG. That shit's been lost, but we bringing it back every single day, bro. I'm telling you right now. The game is fun. The only thing that's happened is that the player's perspective has shifted, and they lost, bro. They forgot how to go to the sandbox and play with the toys. All the toys are there, bro. All the toys are there, and the homies just forgot. They forgot. Let's get into it, boys.
I agree.
Good morning.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Classic Plus Show. And today we have a very, very special guest. We have the one and only Shobek, the legendary role player. You guys have seen his shorts. They are amazing. Shobek, introduce yourself, my man.
Bankai. What's up, everyone? Dude, I'm super hyped to be here. Thank you, Ebon.
Absolutely.
I love this. I love talking about WoW, and I'm really, really excited to jump into this with you all.
That's amazing, my man. And we have our boy Tello, my amazing co-host. Every episode he has been here. Tello, how you doing, my man?
I'm here. I'm alive. I'm exhausted. Shout out to the Hydration Nation. Much love to you boys. I'm exhausted for sure, but we're here. We're alive.
So we're just going to dive right into it, Shobek. And the interesting thing is, as an anniversary player, what are your thoughts on all the quality of life anniversary has added versus the hashtag no changes crowd? Do you prefer this version of anniversary, or do you wish we were back in 2019 classic? I'm not talking about the community itself, just the versions of the game.
This version's miles better. Miles better. I think like the changes are made to help kind of augment how the game was played even prior to 2019. So like when you look at dual spec, what does that do? It allows a player to like be able to PvP and be able to PvE, or try multiple specs for PvE. What does this do? Allows your friends to be able to log on that can't play all day and just not have to sink 100 gold a week just to show up for a raid. I mean, this is massive quality life improvement. And it doesn't really like change or alter the world in like a negative way. It creates more world PvP, creates more people that want to BG. It creates more people that want to do dungeons. It creates more people that want to do raids. So I'm a big fan of that. And the accidental change from the chrono boom, I think, was also something that saved anniversary. Because when you look at the crux of WoW, or like the heart of it, the soul, it's world buffs. Now, the crux in 2019, there was no chrono boom. Oh, you want to play with your friends? Sorry, man. I'm saving my world buffs. You would legitimately go get buffed and you couldn't log into the game and play it at all. Now, chrono boom was an amazing change that they added. However, the gold price of that was also detrimental, and it caused so much more friction and just gold sink. It was like, you can't even play the beautiful game of classic WoW. You have to go through all of these gold sinks. And all that did was just made players want to just go buy gold and promote that whole dark side that I'm not going to, go down into. So them accidentally, putting that sod one into anniversary and then just saying, screw it, 1G chrono boom. That was amazing, because I'm getting world buffs. You're getting world buffs. Your friend who's casual is getting world buffs. Everyone's getting world buffs. Makes the raids easier, makes lower tier guilds a lot more confident in being able to go into the raid. Sorry that I'm yapping. So no matter what, down the ladder, alts, new players, new guilds that want to do it, skilled guilds, it just opens up everything just so much more easier where you can like play the game. And very, very happy. I'm very, very happy with the changes that they made.
Oh, that's very well put. So that's kind of funny that you talked about like the world buffs and the chrono boom from the get-go. This is just kind of a side question. Would you have preferred they added the world buffs from SOD, where you could just go buy them with rune cloths from like the AQ vendor? Or do you think getting world buffs still in the open world is the way to play?
Open world.
Do you think world buffs are fine as they are? Or do you think they should have added that from SOD as well?
Absolutely an open world, 100%. And I would even go to this. I think world buffs are unironically, I think, the glue to the entire game. And they just so happen to stumble upon it because when you look at 2019 and you look at Anniversary and you look at Whiteman, what makes the world feel alive at Endgame? What brings a 60 to Stranglethorn Vale? What brings a 60 to Dire Maul? When you're level 40 and you're like leveling and questing in Fairlass and you see that dude going by on his mount with the gear and you look over and you're like, oh my God, that's going to be me one day. It was going to the world buffs and getting these things. Now, unfortunately, Warlock summons have completely deteriorated and eroded that. Again, that's another rabbit hole to go down into. But I'll just simply say that world buffs and going out into the world is everything. It makes the game feel cohesive, alive, from the player in the Barrens questing and seeing the chimeras flying over, or the griffins if you're Alliance. All of this plays into the symbioticness of like the whole world, and it constantly pulls players to go out always, time after time again in their super stack character to go and get these world buffs. When you go to just a vendor, you're not appreciating the world. You're not adding to the world. You're taking away from Azeroth, the main character. You're taking away from the world, the immersion, and all of that kind of like all that juice, all that fluid that it's just a melting pot. All of that just kind of goes away, and it's just me now. I'm going to go to the auction house, buy the cloth or whatever, and then go to the vendor and I'm gonna buy that. That's all me. That's all me. And you're not even like playing the MMO anymore. You're now playing a queue simulator. And if you kind of can like change your perspective here, once you start incorporating these things where like you don't go to the Dire Maul and kill the dude and talk to the NPC, and you're now the king of Dire Maul, who you can now talk to the NPCs and gain these buffs through venturing through and earning your keep as the king of Dire Maul. Like, I get it's 20-year-old game, but when you look at the systems in that lore, whether you're an RPer or not, it plays a role into people caring and also the cohesiveness of the entire game. And if you just strip that away and you just go to a vendor, what's the difference from that and then LFG? And then take it a step further, you have Warlock summons. So you pretty much just like go to the auction house, buy super insane player power, and then talk to a Warlock, get ported to the dungeon. The only difference is there isn't really an interface in the game where you can click it, but you're playing by the means of which it's kind of like in the game. You're like augmenting it. So it augments retail in the classic, and that's not good. So I'm super against it. Foot traffic in the world is insanely healthy. Super, super important. Sorry for yapping. I yap a lot.
No. Yap as much as you want. The whole point of the show is to get our guests to be as passionate as possible, and you're smashing it there. But Tello, what are your thoughts on that out of curiosity?
I mean, I'll tell you what, man. When it comes to world buffs, it's always a debatable thing, because I do agree to a sense that, going in the open world, feeling alive, seeing people run past Camp T, seeing people, get to their world buffs and seeing a massive raid move along is an exciting sight to see, especially when you're low level. You're like, man, I can't wait to, be in that gear, get that mount, look that cool, and then raid with some chads and get it done, within a subpar 1 hour, 2 hour raid, whoever you're raiding with. But I also look at the problems with it too, because everything has a positive and everything has a negative, right? And like how Shobek was saying about the warlocks, which is a problem. And I feel like the one thing that rips away from that RP immersion, which don't get me wrong, I that's what it's all about. Watching Shobek do his thing in the world, be alive and feel the immersion is something that has been missing from the core game for a long time, in my opinion. The parse culture, the GDKP culture, a lot of it that has ripped apart from the integrity of what the core philosophy of World of Warcraft was, right? But when you look at it from a perspective where you want to enjoy that RP, you want to feel that immersion of Azeroth being this alive, breathing, entity, so to say, you get hit with a 5 gold summon to Dire Maul, 8 gold summon to this location, and then it's over and over again. And then you start to realize slowly but surely that this world that once was an immersion now becomes secluded into a small gap of 4 other people in a party, other warlocks on their bot accounts. And now the thing is, it's like, hey, I get it. At the end of the day, even then, though, there's a social aspect to that because you have to talk to, the services. You have to get involved. But I think it rips a part of it from a little bit. And I understand why, and Saad, why they made those decisions, but I do respect the core classic community to want to go to Dire Mall, to give purpose to always revisiting a place, to not abandon these locations all in all. This is the same kind of argument where a while back before dual spec was added, where people felt like the integrity of removing you going to your capital city to not visit your vendor anymore. There was an argument at one point. It's like if people like dual spec or not. But I do think now the bigger question is this, which I'm curious to see Shobek's perspective on this, and yours as well, Eben. And hello to chat. Much love to you. What do you feel about the limitations on how many boundaries do we push? Is it considered more changes or no changes? And how much does that edge get pushed further and further and further? When do we stop the envelope from fully opening up is my question. And that's
want
what
me
I'm
to go?
curious about.
Go ahead.
Yeah, shoot.
You have to make changes. You have to make changes to change, to interpret the game as it once played. When you were younger, the game, because the gaming is now 20 years old, like the gaming industry, not just WoW, like the gaming industry, the progress of everything, you have to change. The players are, I use this reference all the time. So players, if you give them an inch, they're going to take a mile. And what ends up happening is, because there aren't these systems to kind of keep players to play the game as it was intended back then, when we didn't have knowledge, like, we have to be able to create the systems so it actually is experienced as it was back then. What does that mean? Changes to mage boosting in dungeons, changes to warlock summoning, right? Going back to one layered servers. You have to change the game so it can be played as it once was, and as you imagine it back in your head, like the nostalgia or whatever you want to call it. Because with 20 years of playing the game and 20 years of guides and everything like that, we're so much better and we're so advanced. We will kill the game ourselves. We will suck the fun out of it. We will take away everything, and then all that is left is just kind of like a to-do list. And like, that's just literally what it is. We will burn ourselves if we don't make the changes to the game. You can't just sit here and be like, oh, there's no changes to vanilla. Absolutely no changes. That's the way to play vanilla. No, you weren't playing vanilla how you are now back in 2004. How were you playing the game back in 2004? Mysterious, casual, exploring, fun, all of these things intact. You're probably in a guild. It's server only. It's World of Warcraft, literally in the name, Warcraft, fighting for resources, Devil Sword Mafia, Silithus, everything was like a domain. Even PvP on my server back in the day, it was one guild called TimeSync. That guild dominated the server, period.com. If they were queuing, you weren't ranking. You weren't progressing. And it was this pull, this tug of war and pull, this friction, this undeniable friction that caused players to literally log on and not progress and not to see anything and to lose. But that would like garner more people to collaborate and galvanize, be like, no, we are going to fight for this. We are going to fight for this server. And so when you take all of these things, you have to change the game now to then be played as it once was. Like, changes are so needed. You cannot just be on no changes. Well, if no changes are going to be there, Warlock summons, mage boosting, no outworld, gold inflation, G2G sponsorship, GDKPs. Like, bro, like, what do you mean? Okay, if you want that, the server's going to have like 5,000 pop. All right, cool. Like, do you want to play on a game that is 5,000 pop? Or do you want World of Warcraft to go back and be a server that has millions of people subscribed to it? The reason why people don't want to play the game, and the reason why WoW is currently in its state right now, is because it just, whenever a new server comes out, it pulls in so many people. They're like, maybe this is it again. And guess what happens? Oh, all the little things. It's not the game. It's not nostalgia. It's because of the changes are not being made that players are ruining the experience for them. And they're like, it's just not the MMO anymore. Well, why isn't it the MMO anymore? Well, because they aren't fixing all of the holes in the bucket. We're leaking out so much. Mages, they ruin the Outworld. Warlock summons ruin the Outworld. Forces everyone to purchase and buy gold. We have bots clipping underneath the world, teleporting the Black Lotuses. Like, we have bot problems up the Wazzy Uzi. You have no in-game GMs. You have a litter. We have layers. I mean, bro, like, you want to just talk about it? We got to make changes. Dude, Hodge, you can go buy Hodge. You can AFK in the game. You pay to play the game. And then in the game, you pay someone. So you pay to play World of Warcraft. Then you go to G2G, you buy gold. And then from there, you sit there AFK and let someone else play the game for you that you are paying to play. And you are paying him to play the game for you. So, like, it's just a really weird situation. It's a very weird situation. You should not be able to purchase gear. Like DM runs, bro, you should be running it every time. Anger Forge, nah, bro. Hodge right off the rip should be off Emperor. What would that do? Well, everyone would have to run BRD. Everyone would have to be in these beautiful dungeons that are just art and expression and immersion and actually play the game. Right? And then, maybe some people will figure out and find out they don't actually play the game. They love a checklist. They love to like just to do. But I'm getting a little derailed here, so I'm going to try to bring it back. But the game has to be changed. You have to make changes. It's been 20 years. We have min-max. We have found all these little pieces to get edges and to abuse and to ruin the game for ourselves just to gain. Take a look at Alterac Valley. Just to gain.
Oh, buddy.
Gain.
Yeah.
And
I'm about to go in there this week.
So you really can see it that players, if you give them an inch, they'll take a mile. Players don't know better. And if it's in the game, players are going to do it anyways. For example, I'm not going to spend 3 weeks leveling a character 250 plus hours when I got Steven next to me swiping $8 for 1,000 gold, blasting to 60 in 2 days. The thing is the consistency of integrity of time investment is not equally distributed across the entire game. So if Steven is now getting an exponential growth rate and player experience, but I want to do it legit, because that's I get it all the time. It's like, well, why don't you just play the game legit? It's like, dude, this is coded in the game by design. I mean, like, if they're not going to take it away, obviously I'm going to use it. 250, 300 hours to level the character versus you can just get it done in 3 days. In 3 days boosting casual.
The meta's figured out. It's pointless to do it that way.
So who's playing legit? Why even play legit at this point? It makes no sense.
Because people want to play for the end game, and Evan, you know that too.
Well, and then I made a video on this. It's quite literally, it's called "We Demanded Classic, and then we killed it because we had an idea in our mind of what vanilla World of Warcraft was, except nobody wanted to actually play the game how it was intended. Like you said, nobody wants to actually be on a 2,000 person one-layer server. Nobody actually wants to have to grind things or put the effort or the energy in because." The moment one person goes out of their way to cheat or do things fast or exploit something, if you're not doing that, you're falling behind. And in modern gaming, we've all gone to a point where the moment someone else has an advantage over us, we feel like we're losing or the game is no longer fair or balanced because he's exploiting, so now I have to exploit. And you see this in every instance of the game. Boosting.
Yep.
Mage summons. No one's going to spend 15 minutes flying there because, okay, yeah, I don't want to spend the 8G to get buy a summon, but if I don't, everyone's going to be waiting for me. No one's actually grouping up. As you remember back in 2019, before mage summons are current, your whole guild would get together, 40 people waiting at, Morgan's Vigil, or what's the Horde one called? That you would get there and then you would all run in together. Karga, you would all run in together. And like people used to actually have to play as a community, as a guild, as whatever. And now it's gone to the point where, well, I'm not going to really level. I'm not going to go do my dungeon pre-bus. I'm going to pay to 60. And then I'm going to sit and get boosted through these runs. I'm going to pay for a ZG, well, not the GDKPS in the game right now, but
it has to be
the way to skip the game.
Absolutely. I mean, I've talked about this a lot. It has to be like the customer base that they're doubling down on. And they're like, yo, this is just they're not going anywhere. Because like I don't know, like it makes no sense to me. I always try to like look at where does it make sense, and when you look at where the game is at, it's just like how can this be okay? How can this be okay? I don't really get it. Sometimes I like when I'm yapping, I'm just like maybe I'm just completely wrong, and I just don't actually see it, and I just don't get it. But I feel like everything is very fast paced. Like it's technically retail in classic, where everything is just streamlined. They want things to be fed. And maybe that's because it's a 20-year-old game. Maybe that is because we've played it so much. Maybe we don't. Or they, at least, again, like I said before we even hit record, I think it's a perspective. I think we're literally at the sandbox and people just don't know how to play with their toys anymore. Like they just don't know. And now it's to the point where they're like showing up to the playground and they're paying someone else to play with their toys in the sandbox while they watch.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, guys, why don't you just jump in this bitch with me? Because this is fun as hell. I do this every day. I meet new people every day in the game. I treat the game as if it's a one-layered server. I shoulder, I take hits, I run back, I fight. Dude, I meet so many people. Like, it's really there. I just think there's a few things that are crumbling it from WoW being like super, super massive. Like not just a little niche, but super, super massive, where other streamers would be playing classic WoW more. And I'm saying like getting Soda to play classic WoW, right? Having all these people to constantly be playing classic WoW, it's just a few changes in my opinion. Because the foundation's there. The foundation for it being a perfect MMO is really there. And it's only just going to get better when TBC comes.
I agree with that. My problem is with Classic in particular, I don't think people actually want to play Classic anymore. The analogy you said that they get to the sand pit and then they're like, hey, Timmy, here's $5. Play with my fire truck for me so I can watch you play with the fire truck while I sit on this bench.
Yeah, we're like cucks for joy.
Yeah.
Literally. We're like cucks we're cucking
true.
us on joy. Like
I think the problem is, why do people play like that? I think it's a fundamental like player-based problem in the sense that we all want to play classic, we all want to play vanilla, and then we get there, and like I hear this all the time in like my chat or like in my video comment section or just watching other streamers. It's like they get to the end game and they're like, okay, now I'm going to play my 2 hours a week and I'm done. I'm not playing anymore. I'm going to go do other things. And I feel like we as a player base have to fundamentally make a change, or Blizzard has to force us to play how the game is meant to be played. And I don't see anybody trying to make a real movement or an attempt at this. Hardcore was the closest we got to it, because in hardcore, you kind of had to live in the world. And my question to you is, do you fundamentally believe that Classic can be saved as a game and community, or do you think the player base is so bygone that it's essentially MMO angle or a Classic Plus angle before anything actually changes?
It's for sure Classic Plus. I think Vanilla WoW, we've gotten, if you just look at 2019, I don't know if anyone's mapped this out. 2019, we had Vanilla. Then we had Season of Mastery. Then we had the resurgence of Whiteman. Then we had Deviant Delight. And we had Season of Discovery. And now we have Anniversary. From 2019, we have played 6 versions of Vanilla Fresh. And I would argue probably 2 of those were a little bit more niche. But for the most part, 2019, Season of Mastery, Season of Discovery, and the resurgence of Whiteman, after like post TBC or beginning of Wrath, I mean, guys, we have played this so many times over and over and over again in such a short span. You know, I understand this kind of goes against everything that I've said earlier, but I feel like the conversation is just kind of flowing. It almost seems that is why. You know, like when you play like an FPS shooter or a game over and over and over again, like first week you're playing Marvel Rivals with your friends, you're like, oh my God, this is so crazy. You're missing shots and it's like whatever. Post 1 week, like you miss one shot, one dude is like outstepped or not playing with the team for like 1 second and you're nerd raging. You just get so blinders on and just like laser focused that anything that is out of the normal of what you are doing, because you're playing it all the day. It's like a nuisance. It's just like, oh my god, it's shattering. How could you stop or prevent my progression? And so when you apply that to 5 or 6 freshes in the past 4 since 2019, people are burnt out and they don't even realize.
Yeah,
I think we're all playing it way too much because there's nothing better. I know that's subjective, but I mean, in my opinion, there's nothing that comes close to this game. So we have to play this because we're MMOs. We love the fantasy world. And then B, we're waiting for that next thing, and that has to be Classic Plus. I think Classic Plus is the soft WoW 2, I think, for everyone. They're never going to label it as WoW 2 or give it that energy, because then that's going to devalue everyone that's kind of playing retail and that whole community. But I think as a cohesive, we all look at Classic Plus as the next WoW 2. And so I think this is something that we should leave behind lovingly. Like, it's the chapter that closed that allowed us to open up the new, because this game has done everything, not only for me, but for a lot of you guys. And I feel like we've played it so much. I mean, I have been here since the beginning. Back in vanilla, I didn't go to TBC. I was there on Q Gaming. I was there when Grizzly was formed. I was there when Plan B was formed. I've been playing vanilla WoW ever since I was a kid, all the way through. I didn't play TBC. I didn't really play Wrath. I didn't play Kata. I was on vanilla server. I was there when the forum post was made for Nostalrius. I think it was like 8 or 9 years before it was ever even created. I was there in my friend Andy's room. We're both looking at it like, oh my God, this is going to be the server that saved us. I played so much vanilla. I've always been in vanilla. And this game has opened up everything. And I think it's ready for the chapter to be closed. Like, I really do. I think it's been a beautiful ride. And I'm so excited for Classic Plus. But again, if they don't do Classic Plus, I'm telling you right now, I'm coming right back, because it's the best game, and they have to really, really dial it in for us to like leave this. By the way, I'm just prefacing, they have to absolutely cook with Classic Plus for you to even think about getting players to actually leave this thing. I'm ready to leave it, but it needs to be something else to get me to leave it.
I have an interesting question. Would you leave it if they decided to make a new server, no mages, no warlocks, one
100%.
layer?
100%. Are you kidding me?
Dude, but you would still leave it or go back?
I would leave it. I would go to vanilla. Oh, dude, if they gave us Classic Plus with layers and they gave us a vanilla server with 1 layer, I'm playing vanilla. 1 layer is everything.
I'm saying vanilla. Vanilla has not Classic Plus.
Yeah. If Classic Plus had layers and I could play on a vanilla 1-layered server, like actually hard 1 layer with like GMs, no warlock summons, no mage boosting, it's just gonna be like, it'd be like Grob Mob in 2019, or probably even better.
Okay, that's interesting. That picking the 1 layer thing, that I'm impartial. I don't particularly care. I want Classic Plus for reasons of finishing the world of vanilla. So in terms of gameplay, I'm sure the 1 layer probably would feel funner and smoother for someone like you that does the role play and investment into the server, that true vanilla experience.
Well, if I can jump in, I would like to introduce the perspective of how important 1 layering is.
Of course, go ahead.
So, what's the title of the game? What's the title of the game?
World of Warcraft.
What's that last word?
Warcraft.
What do you do in vanilla? You go out into the world and you craft. 1 layer, you see someone, there's war. That is it's in the name by nature. I don't know if you've ever got to experience Ebonhardt, Devil Sore Mafia, a guild always logged on. Imagine the coalition for world bosses, but in a literal, actual, physical space in the world where you cannot touch it. They own and dominate. What this does is it pulls in the big players. And what I mean by big players is that there are players in this gaming universe outside of WoW that whenever they get into a game, they dominate and they galvanize people. This is the Scarab Lords. This is the #1 rating guild. This is the Kungan, the Nihilum, right? So when you get a 1-layer server, you have people that actually care because they want to dominate the game. And when you have that, and you have that actual ability to pull in those big players, because where are they now? Where's Maytaz? What's Maytaz going to do? Maytaz can't really do anything with apes because in a lot of ways, there's so many layers you can evade. Everything that like actually pulls in these big players, because when you get the big dogs to then start going at each other, you have a server that's so alive. I mean, bro, I can't even tell you how much chaos and politics and just downright just gaming. I mean, it's bloody, but that's what World of Warcraft is. It's bloody. It's so bloody. It's Horde versus Alliance. It is unapologetic. And when you get big dogs to have reason to get in there, then it's like, whoa, now you have a game. And then when you look at like old vanilla, you had one layered servers, single BG group on that server. You had world dominance with like multiple resources, whether it's Lotus, Devil Sword Mafia. And then on top of that, you also have the events and the BGs. I mean, there's so much to pull for someone to be like, I want to be the best. I want to be the big dog. I want to be number one. And when you have that mentality going around and everyone's going out and fight, it's crazy. It's such a crazy world.
Well, I want to ask you this, Shobek, real quick. Just want to interject for a second. Do you think in a world where there was a side server that was the mentality that you have and everything that you're talking about circumferenced into, one server, one layer, it's an optional server, you also have your other versions of WoW that you can play, realistically in 2025 right now with how the player mindset is conditioned at the current point, do you think your world would work out more, or the current structure and the layer that we have right now would work because we're so used to it, we're so farmed to that mentality with everybody, at the same pace doing the same thing over and over again? We've been doing it for years now, So would you think in a world that that one layer idea would work over what we currently have right now, and would it be more popular or would it be less popular?
I'll just say this. We took a dead server and we populated with over 5,000 people. We went from 0 to over 5K pop on Deviant Delight. When we did Deviant Delight for that small little window frame, it was everything that we've always wanted. If you ask anyone that played in those first few weeks on Deviant Delight, they will say it is everything we've ever wanted. A fresh server, one layer, no economy. There was no mage boosting. There was nothing. Like G2G didn't even know about the server. It was 100% separated from everything. And we went there and we created all of these communities, and it was the best 4 or 5 weeks of our life because it was everything. And I know so many people would play on the one layer server. I know everyone would play on one layer. Everyone would. The only problem with one layer right now is that there's no in-game GMs. So the bots are going to be 25% of the population, if not more. And then you're going to have people that remote desktop in. So it's going to be like pretty damn brutal to get into the one layer. That's the only drawback, are those two things. But outside of that, I think right now it would pull in so many people. And the people that aren't, because again, people that are playing on Anniversary, like you said earlier, they're the guys that are just logging on, boosting up, and then just raid logging. And they're playing the 2 hours a week. People that are going to play on that server, the one layer, they're making a deliberate decision. A deliberate decision for a little bit more slower times to form a group, a little bit more slower times to get a raid, maybe a harder time to clear the raid. They're making the deliberate decision because they want to play the game as a whole. As you said earlier, the integrity of the game being intact. But again, it's all kind of what you want. They're just unironically split games. Do you want the actual game with integrity intact, or do you want the speed run, right? It's technically a speed run. What is the Anniversary? You speed to 60, whether or not you're leveling legit or not. You're just speed running like crazy, not necessarily creating that many friendships along the way. It's super self-centered, trying to just like get your stuff and just raid log and then be done, and maybe like parse and have like a high log and then get into a raiding guild, which I do think these raiding guilds and speedrun guilds, they have close connections with one another. I'm not disvaluing that. There's relationships being made everywhere. but it's at the sacrifice of like one micro niche moment in the game when there's so much more. There's so much more. And I strongly think people would play on a one-layer server. Strongly.
I do agree with you, because as you were saying and Tello was asking, I was thinking about the whole time. I think, and this is sad for me to even admit, I think people idealize and actually want to play on the server you're describing. But I think if push comes to shove and they actually have to play on it and put that effort and that time and that dedication to play World of Warcraft how it's meant to be played, a lot of them would level to 20, 30, 45, quit, go back to the other server and continue with how they're playing. Because I think at this point in the modern day and age, I do agree with you that a certain percentile of the player base, the dedicated, die-hard, hardcore players that want to play World of Warcraft, what World of Warcraft is, they're going to play, how you said, Deviate Delight, the Whiteman Resurgence, 2019's launch. But the majority, I think, have gotten to the point where they're like, I have 7 wives, 42 children, 13 jobs. My 2 hours a week, I can't afford to dedicate myself to the game like I want to. Or maybe they say they want to, and then when it comes to it, they're going to be like, too much effort for me. I can't be bothered doing this.
But do you see that, right? That's the customer. Because if you create the carrot on the stick, they're never, I mean, bro, I have 3 kids, a wife, and like an ex-wife with another stepson. Bro, I can play 2 hours and get Grisil. I'm never going to unsub.
How many wives do you guys have?
That's what I'm saying. So like when you look at it,
I have 4.
Where's my wife?
Maybe I'm on copium, but I would I would defend that there's a larger circle, right? And all of these people, I think they would all play the actual game. These are like the outer circle. All these people, they want to actually play World of Warcraft, but it's not actually World of Warcraft anymore. But now we have this smaller circle. This smaller circle, you can do everything in the game for 2 hours a week. And that they're locked in for a sub. I mean, if you look at the anniversary logs, it's the lowest between any classic version. When was that? When has that ever happened? Why is Vanilla WoW right now losing when you look at statistics? Why is Vanilla WoW losing? This is WoW. And so when you look at it, they're doubling down on that customer base. And I think if you actually made a game that was, again, what we said earlier, integrity and time investment and sacrifice is respected across the board. Because if you have a son or kids and you only have 3 hours to play, but you know your friend Jake is boosting up to 60, what are you gonna do, bro? You're either gonna boost, or imagine if you don't want to boost and you're like, dude, Jake, why are you boosting? Oh, bro, I just want to get there. Okay, now you feel pressured, but you don't want to do it. Okay, say you don't do it. Well, now you're questing in the outworld and there's no one there. Why am I going to invest my time into something when all of it feels like it's stripped away and gone? So, in my opinion, if there was a dad that only had 4 hours a week and there was a server with 1 layer and all of these things that erode the integrity of the game, that 4 hours has so much more value in life to it than a fucking months to 2 months on the anniversary server. Of 2 months, 4 hours, you would get so much more value. It's a feeling, dude. It's a feeling, and you know it when a server has it. Every single server since inception has a soul. You ask anyone about 2005 on their server, every single server has a different soul, a different vibe, and a different feel. And I swear people would just flock to it because it would be not only the coziness, the chillness, because again, the game isn't about getting to 60 within the first week to kill Rag. The game is a portal for hundreds of thousands of players to play at any part and any pace that they want to create their story. If you want to, Bobka, he's going to get there. Ampy, he's going to get there. But it doesn't mean you have to. The problem is the energy on these servers is that everyone needs to be at that pace. And if the players that don't want to play at that pace want to play the game, there is no game left to play because everything is just removed. No world, nothing, everything's portal, everything's goal-based. If you're level 20 and you want to go to auction house, good fucking luck, bro. All the mages and everyone, a green is like 10 gold. Like,
Yeah, greens are so, dude. That is a
there's
fact.
no more. 98% of the game is now removed, and there's only 2% of the game left. How in the hell can the guy with the kids only have 4 hours a week play the game? And guess what? He's gonna give in to Steven or Jake or whatever, who's fucking boosting. He's gonna boost up, doesn't respect his character, doesn't have an emotional connection to it. And guess what? He's just gonna raid log, and he's just gonna be kind of chill with it, and he's gonna get his gear. And guess what? He's gonna quit the fucking game when he gets the gear, because there's no sense of achievement, there's no sense of reward. He's cheated for everything, and it's not gonna hit the same. And so then what happens is either one or two things. Either he's gonna quit, or he's just gonna make an alt. But it's gonna be the same cyclical cycle: boost, gear, AV, boost, gear, AV, lockout, boost, gear, AV, lockout. Over
it's actually funny that you say
again.
That because statistically you're 100% correct, because every single classic server from 2019 till now, by the time AQ happens, everybody starts to quit and burn out because the raid logging has eroded the sense of the world. Now I'm not just going to put on just, it's AQ's fault because AQ's a bad raid, but AQ's like that finality of it. You get to AQ, you've been raid logging, you're no longer playing the world, you're not enjoying the content, you're not going out there doing things, you're not, the world from World of Warcraft was removed. I knew so many people that quit. Even, I'm gonna be honest, I quit during 2019 in AQ. I was like, I can't do this. I ain't gonna do it. I took a break from the game. I came back for Nax afterwards because I had some time to like decompress. But every single time you actually see that, you see the population start climbing and then falls off because nobody's enjoying the world for what it was meant to be. Because you're right, 2019's launch was like that. It was an all-time high. Everybody came back, it peaked in Blackwing Lair, then it just stayed down.
You have to ask yourself, though, why are they quitting? If we had a pool of 1 million players and by Blackwing Lair they're quitting, why are they quitting? Well, I can tell you why they're quitting. Mage boosting, that's why they're quitting. There was no chrono boom in the game. Players legitimately had, like, I remember my friend Adam and Nick, who's my roommate, they got me into the game. I couldn't even play with them because they were raiding and they're like, bro, I have to stay logged for my buffs. Well, guess what? I'm out. It's like who's the female gnome that made the video where like it's the whole gang and then the little things kind of happen and they're like, then they slowly but surely pint, right?
Yeah,
so
Pint.
There's all of these things and these pitfalls, again, that's making the bucket leak. And that is why people are falling off. They're not falling off because of the game itself. They're falling off because we have now exploited and we found the weak points. 350 mob Mara pools. 350 mob Mara pools. Are you kidding me?
Sounds like a good time.
350 mob. How can that be in your 350 mob?
It is true.
350
just
mob.
So much AFKing in a game that's meant to be played. Everyone's just trying to skip it, and it's like
because people don't want to play the game, man. People don't want to play the game. They want to play it.
What you said was interesting, Shobek, and it was that this was from before. You said there's no other MMO to go to that's better, and the fact that we're playing the corpse of classic, right? The corpse of vanilla. It's not even the original game anymore. It's like we've puppeted it to be something else. It's still the best MMO. Like, sure, some people might say Final Fantasy 14 or Retail, WoW, but for so many people, vanilla still, the classic is still the best version, and it's an abomination of what it was truly originally meant to be, and it's still the best.
Yep,
it's a great MMO. It's a great MMO. There's no denying that, and Shobek has a mentality as well of the passionate old WoW player. You could see it. You can embody it. It's in his streams. It's in every content that he does, and it's an attractive thing, especially to like the viewers and everybody else. Like that type of mentality is what I even wish as a player what World of Warcraft was all about. Like at the end of the day, everyone has their shtick, everyone has their gig, but you don't see that much anymore. And to be honest, it's of a dying breed, low key. And when you look at everything else, in my opinion, everybody just wants, at least from this current, mindset that we're on, everyone just wants to be at 60. They just want to rush the experience. They just want to get through it, and then when they're burnt out, maybe boost another 60.
And I will say this. It is an anniversary expedited server, and so in some ways that's okay. I feel like in this version of the game, I feel like that's okay. I feel like whenever I talk about all this emotion and like I pour myself into the game, because guys, this game has changed my life. I mean, I wouldn't even be on this call for you if it wasn't for this game. I really speak whenever I want these changes and stuff like that. I really do speak for Classic Plus, because I really feel like that is the next go. And something I always I kind of meme on with chat, it's like, do you think there's going to be mage boosting in Riot's MMO? Do you think there's going to be like the degeneracy of like mage portals and like the whole automation market and all this stuff? Do you think there's going to be like no GMs? Like, do you think these things are going to be in the new Riot MMO? And it's like you said, absolutely not. And it's like, well, if that's going to be the quote unquote next MMO, why are we just letting it in this one? Why are we just letting all this stuff in this one?
Right? I think the difference is Blizzard versus Riot as a company, in the sense that Riot has just on any given day, like all of Blizzard's IPs put together, has less players in a whole month than Riot cycles in a single day of League of Legends people. That's not even counting China. Just NA and EU League of Legends has, so I think, 260 million monthly unique players.
Why not just take inspiration?
Why, all these GMs and people that actually try. Like, don't get me wrong, League's not a perfect game. Like, I played League, absolute dog water game, ruined my life. But they care. They do constant fixes, constant patches, constant balancing.
I think they care, by the way. I think the WoW devs care. I mean, these guys,
classic devs for sure.
I think the classic devs do care. When I was at BlizzCon, I wasn't able to like talk with them enough. I really wanted, and I also was, I think, not ready to, or not as mature as I am now. I really would love to get into a conversation with them. And just, I don't know the vibe. I don't know the vibe. I don't know if they see the game the same way that I do. I don't know if they came in too late, if they don't know, like, I don't know. I'm so nervous. Like when I look at SOD and what they've done with Season of Discovery, I really hope it is like a true template. Like the rune system and stuff like that is not in Classic Plus, and that's just in like an easy way for players to kind of swap around and try new things. But it's not a thing that's going to be, in the game and whatnot. Not to get on a tangent, but I hope that they see the soul, and I never was able to talk with them to see and like gauge if they see the soul.
So I've actually talked to them a few times before my interviews with them, and slightly afterwards. I talk to Agrin and the DMs every now and then. And one thing that's interesting is a lot of the classic WoW devs are genuinely really passionate and truly do care. They've got people on the team that have been working on Classic since Blackwing Lair from vanilla.
Real quick, do they? I understand that they care, but do they understand? They care, yes, but do they understand?
So with SOD, a lot of people have been like, oh, this is a terrible Classic Plus. This is dog shit. Like, this is not what I envision. With Season of Discovery, when they first made it, they've been working 60 days ahead of time. That's how ahead they've been the entire time. Everything we've got on Season of Discovery has been on a very, very short timeline. The most they've ever been ahead, I think, is 90 days.
But what were they doing then?
They had like 12, 13 employees for a long time. Bobby Kotick gutted the original Classic team, because the original Classic team was the RTS team.
Yeah, it sucks because we had 2019 vanilla, and then we went into TBC, and then we went into SOM, and then SOM had to like literally die, and then it was like 6-7 months. And then we were at Whiteman, and then we had SOD, and now we had SOD for almost 2 whole years. I feel like they've had the development time to make it, but I guess they just don't have the team. But now they do start to have the team.
Now, yes,
they do
Microsoft,
now.
After the acquisition. So it wasn't initially, but like, because SOD happened, and I think Microsoft had just acquired them. And I think since Microsoft's acquisition, the team has grown. They have resources now, because you can see the difference between Phase 1 and Phase 2 were really good, but then you see in Phase 3, 4, 5, and 6 that they clearly like budget time. They limited what they were doing.
Yeah.
And then you get Phase 8, which is a whole new zone, 8 new bosses, a lot of like the tier. I mean, it was cool looking tier, but so many classes shared it. But the devs are working and improving. They're not perfect, mind you. Like, SOD is not a perfect game, but the fact that they did that much with so little, And now that they've grown, it does give me hope for Classic Plus because I've talked to them. I see them. They actually agree with you on GDKPs, for example, because I know you're like incredibly anti-GDKP. And the devs are wholeheartedly against it because of what it does to the game and the culture and the world, which is honestly one of the other questions I had here. What are your true thoughts on GDKP? Assuming, let's just say, as in the current state of the game, would you like GDKPs to be added back, yes or no?
Current state of anniversary on a 1-year cadence that we've already blown the back out of, yes, I think the game could use GDKPs. However, I also think it's not a good thing to add the GDKPs. Like for the game itself right now, it would be good. However, for Classic Plus in the future and just like the community as a whole, we should never reintroduce that to the game, like to the player base. Because what it does is like, I saw the plan. Once they removed GDKP's phase 1, I instantly knew what they were doing. It takes a long time to reteach the community something. So when they gave us GDKPs, everyone was going crazy with it. So if they just let GDKPs in anniversary or let GDKPs in at all, when Classic Plus comes, that is all the game devolves into. The players will devolve the game into the efficiency, and then there's no more RP, there's no more nothing. It's literally just GDKP and gold, and like that's it. So it's really, really bad for the brand of the game, the integrity of the game, the culture of the game, and like getting someone new to play the game, and they're like, oh, what? We're gonna group up and get a guild and kill a dragon? Nah, bro, you're gonna buy gold and like join this group, and these guys are gonna carry you, and you're gonna pay gold for the gear, and then that's it. Wait, what? So in anniversary, in the vacuum space of anniversary right now, it would be good. Yes, it would be better. That's just because, like we just yapped about for the past 20 or so minutes, that everyone is just beating the game and completing the game, and it would just add for more. And it's also a expedited cadence, but again, it ruins the economy furthermore and whatnot. But I'm so against it. I think it's terrible. I think it's really terrible.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Because I think I look at it from two perspectives. One, at the end of the day, I'm all for people playing the version that they want to play, right? I have no hate on the way people like to approach the game. If they enjoy a certain way, they enjoy a certain way. And maybe there should be other servers like we were talking about earlier, like we were talking about the world of like, you know, having that one layer or having, you know, no Warlock Mafia or no Mage Mafia, right? None of that. But at the same time, right? There is an incentive that I do see about GDKPs where I differ a little bit from you, Shobek, where I do think, in a way, GDKPs enable the current guild in the raiding scene to want to get the bosses done. There is a certain mentality about it, and I'm not being pro GDKP in this scenario. I'm just saying it makes the other people around you motivated to get the boss down. Because how many times has anybody been in a raid where you're in molten core for 4 hours, 3 hours? Somebody keeps wiping because they're not doing the correct mechanics.
Can I jump in?
And here's the thing, but hold on one sec. Here's the thing. I do think GDKPs with the gold buying are bad, but I think in a real world, the best solution is to have a server with GDKPs and a non-server with GDKPs and see which one thrives. And I think that's what you do, personally.
Okay. Can I jump in?
Yeah.
Where's Whiteman? Why isn't everyone playing on Whiteman? You have everything you want. You can raid on everything. Why isn't Whiteman flourishing? Why is Whiteman I mean, yeah, there's raids on Whiteman, but why isn't Whiteman completely cannibalizing Anniversary? Why isn't it? It's there. You have every single raid. You can do everything to your heart's content, and you can do it more. You can do AQ right now, and you can also go do Nax Ramus. What is it? Because it's you know, someone in the chat said it's not fresh. Oh, does that matter? I mean, we're already practically done with the game. It's only 2 things, and what are you chasing at that point? I mean, it's clear that the game, the GDKP, when you said we've all been there, that's somebody in the raid, because you are now labeling someone in the raid as a somebody, that is a direct correlation to what layers do and mecha servers do to the community. When you are actually on a server, you it's more difficult to get into guilds because the social aspect of the game is way more intact. Your name has way more value and your word carries a lot more. When you are mega servers with thousands of people and everyone is just spamming to get in, the player is no longer a player. They're a class and what value they're bringing. And there is no sort of social hierarchy to support that. And if someone does do bad in the raid, there are repercussions. Because of all of the mecha servers and the layers, players are now invisible and they're not actually even players. They are glorified, shit-tiered, level 3 Super Smash Brothers NPCs on your team. And typically, people treat them as such because it is just too many people on the server for you to even keep a mental note on. And so when you have that whole like somebody thing and the incentive to clear the raid, that's all because of mecha servers and layers. One layer, if you have a chance to raid with a guild and you do bad, dude, that goes around. That goes around. So people are a lot more invested in themselves and how they act and how they game when the community infrastructure is intact. And on top of that, people that are doing GDKPs, not only, you have a couple things. First off, you have people just buying everything. And this is super toxic because yes, does it give the full tier 3 warrior a reason to play the game? But he should be, again, everything that we yapped about, there should be a million things that he can go do in the game to be able to use that gear. And then another thing is the GDKPs will now group the players against one another. So what they do is there's like a corruption in the GDKP. I don't know if you know about this. This is what literally happens. You have the top boys that do this. It's not everyone, but this is a thing that realistically happens. The GDKP, they'll always take a cut. The top DPS and the top heals will always take a cut. Yep. So then from there, if you invite all of your boys, so for example, all of us are raiding together, say for example, CTS drops. Well, guess what? If I have everyone in my raid right now, like all of my friends, you can just pay me your cut that you would get normally from the raid, and I will buy the weapon so you don't even lose gold really. You show up to the raid and we pretty much LC the shit out of the gear, because if the payout is 5,000 gold to all of my boys and it's going for 35, guess what, boys? Just give me your cut. We're still going to make profit and I get the weapon. And you just cycle that. All of your boys get all of the gear. And all you do is you bring in whales to bid up against each other. And then you literally just get the cut. So it's either item doesn't drop and everyone gets a fat payout, or like one item drops and you help one of your boys get the best gear. And then everything else is just getting upbidded by the whales. And so you're just LCing the shit out of the gear. And on top of that, there is no risk and reward. There's only reward with GDKP. You know what this does? Exponential progress on progress. You are never walking out of a GDKP without loss of progress. That is a bad mentality and it is a bad design in the game. What fucking game would I ever want to play where everything I do is never a threat and I'm always progressing? The game is supposed to make you walk out with nothing. You're supposed to fail. You're supposed to not get it. It's World of Warcraft. You're supposed to be prevented from progress. That is what causes friction and stress and makes you evolve as a player. How can you even train a player to become better when they can just show up and then always progress on something? And then how does that look at a macro scale on the server? If everyone is progressing at such a large scale from gold and everything, what ends up happening? What even is meaning anymore? Oh, that's right. Nothing does have meaning anymore. Why? Because it just comes to how much did you pay for that? And then, so there's levels of corruption. There's changes in the infrastructure of the social hierarchy. There's changes in the reward structure of the game. It all fucking crumbles. It all crumbles. For what?
Well, let me ask you this. Let me interject real quick. What, like, just being genuine, and I just want to just ask from like 100% honesty here.
Yeah.
In the current player mindset, and Ebit, I'm curious about your take on this too. What do you realistically see being the more thriving server? And I'm just being like 100% honest. I know the passion's there, and I get it. We all have that passion, you know, for World of Warcraft. But in the current setting, 2025 of the month of May going into June, if a server was to open up, let's say June 1st, and everybody can answer this as well at the same time, what server do you think thrives more, the GDKP server or the non-GDKP server?
As it is right now.
Right
Wait,
now,
hold on. By what metric?
with
By
the
what
player
metric?
mentality,
By what
by
metric?
by going off the player mentality in the current state of anniversary of the auction house, of the economy, of where we're at as a phase, what server just thrives more than other? If there was like a year run from like June, starting June 1st, out of nowhere, the non-GDKP or the GDKP one? And I'm just curious to see where you guys are, both of you, on an honest situation. Because I'm going to be honest with you, and I'll tell you right now what I personally think. I low-key think the GDKP one would be more popping because of people going into raids, getting their consumables paid for, wanting to get in and out. They already rushed the game at 60 anyways in AV. They set in the settings of a WoW setting. They put the smart collision, and they auto run from one place to the other in AV already. They're already buying Will to Sell Mara boosts, SM boosts, RFC boosts, SFK boosts. They're buying ZG boosts. They're getting summons already. So, in my personal opinion, I think it'd be the GDKB with a non-bias, just being honest with you. But what do you guys think?
It's so the question that you're asking in this particular instance, in these particular parameters, the GDKP server would do better, and there's a specific reason for that. It's not because GDKPs are better, because I do actually agree with Shobek that GDKPs erode social structure and community. The problem with GDKPs isn't that it's the GDKP, it's this fact that there is no server identity, there is no GM, there is no punishment for gold buying aside from a 2-week. That's a vacation. That's not a punishment. Nobody's going to give a shit about getting a 2-week vacation from WoW because they bought 50,000 gold. It doesn't affect the game or the integrity of the game. So as it stands right now, GDKPs are more profitable, they're smoother, the raids always do well no matter what you look at it. For the classic player base, a GDKP server will do better because of how the game is structured and the consequences of how you play and interact with the game world. If there were actual GMs that did ban all the problems, a non-GDKP server would do 10 times better. But because that does not exist, that's a dream, the GDKP server would do better based on current classic player mentality. But that's solely due to the fact that we don't have any restrictions or security or any functional oversight on the player base.
And that's also
if
because
you were getting permabanned, sorry, go ahead, Shobek.
I was gonna say, like, also because that's all that's left, right? Like, all the actual players, they're gone because it's not the game anymore, right? So, I mean, like, yeah, and then also too, like, everyone will just go off of, oh, there's more raid logs, because that's the only metric you can even go off of. It's just more raid logs. Like, yeah, no shit, you're gonna have more raid logs. Homie's gonna have 15 characters. He's just gonna live and breathe in raids. Yeah. Does that mean there's a healthy game because you can just jump into an MC? Does it mean that the game is healthy? Does it mean it's more thriving? No, that doesn't define a healthy server. Well, so it's like
living in raids and not living in the world.
What? Well, not even. Like, what are you gonna do? Like, what metric are you even going off of? Are you going off the metric of an easy molten core? Are you going off the metric that you don't have to farm consumables? You don't really have to farm consumables to play the game. I mean, like, there's so many ways for you to make gold in the game. There's so many different ways, and it's like, of course, it would probably do better in like Ebon said, with the given circumstances, for sure. That's why I said earlier, once we open up the can of worms, in this instance, GDKP would be good. However, it's a mute conversation because you don't want that to be anywhere near your player base, because it's not even about this anniversary server right now. So let's say, like, we did what you said and we created the GDKP server. Well, guess what happens when Classic Plus comes out? Or let's not look that far out. What's going to happen when TBC comes out? Oh, we want a TBC. Well, we're spliced again. Why are we constantly splicing? Motherfucker, do you know how many times a day I get what server are you on, Shobek? There's more servers than damn pronouns in this fucking shit. There's so many servers. Bro, I got Clatta, Mop, fucking Remix, Plunder, Storm, this. I got Whiteman, GDKP. I got Anniversary. I got Retail. Dude, there's so many, dude. I don't even know what I am anymore. I don't even know. And so it's like, dude, we are not splicing the community anymore. Like, we just, A, that's not an option. And then B, you can't introduce it because you need the players to learn to step away. It's like, guys, if you want to look at it as the good old days, you can look at it as the good old days. But that's it. And I guess it's kind of like a funny kind of connection that I'm having right now. Everyone that loves GDKPs, I'm looking at the camera so we can connect on this. Everyone that loves GDKPs and they fucking miss it, you now understand how I feel about this game. You now understand how I feel about this game. We are on common ground. You now understand it. You understand where I'm coming from. So at that point, you can't. It's GDKP. It's done. You cannot have it in a game.
So it's interesting because there's been data that proves, it quite literally proves that GDKPs, and not just GDKPs in the sense of WoW, but across multiple games, it erodes the social construct of what makes the game good in the long term. And you can see that in a place like Cataclysm. It has about 100,000 raiders in raid logs right now. And you can literally, like, just the people I know playing Cataclysm, I know 2 guys that raid 8 times a week. 2 people. I'm not saying the average Cataclysm raider is raiding 8 times a week, mind you. But GDKPs, as you said, it makes a raid log so much easier. Like, it's an inflated number because of how easy it is to raid. If you look at TBC's raid logs, I know multiple people that are raiding on 4, 5, 6 characters through Black Temples, Tempest Keep, SSC, because GDKPs made it fun and worthwhile for you to level on alt. But that does bring the question of, what is more important, a shit ton of raiders or a full world?
Can I ask a question? I had a thought
ahead.
I would love to jump in. I'm sorry, I'm yapping and dominating.
You're good, go right ahead.
Would you rather have, I'd like to ask you guys this. Would you rather have 8 raids a week where all you have to do is log in to the invite and clear it? Or would you rather have 1 raid and the entire week you spend playing the game with your guildies, running around the world, fighting for every single inch, every single gold, every single resource, creating adventure and creating memories along the way, and you only got to raid once? Or would you just want to have the 8 raids, you get the login, you don't say anything, it's clear comms, and you just log off afterwards? You're muted.
You're muted, Evan.
If you ask me, for Classic Plus, because like honestly, I'm just tired of raiding at this point. Like, I'm leveling Anniversary, I'm gonna hit 60, I'm not gonna touch a raid.
New game. No, a new game. Not even Classic.
New game.
Yeah.
I would want the most core vanilla experience, but modernized. So a lot of changes, mind you, but I would like it that the world matters. You want to go out in the world and grind. You want to get your consumables. You want to make friends. I know people can still do this in today's day and age. I know you can still go there, run a dungeon, and make friends. I know that still happens. I remember 2007, 8. I remember 2012 or 10 when I was playing. And I remember just getting on, running a dungeon, and then playing with that same guy because we just vibed and started chatting for days afterwards. I miss early 2019 where everyone, like, I remember the launch of 2019. I made a guild because it was fun. We got together. 3rd MC cleared on the server, or 2nd MC, I don't remember at this point. And the community was fun. The vibes were there. Everybody was like, the friendships I made lasted years. I met my wife in 2019 playing World of Warcraft.
Would you meet your wife in a GDKP?
Hell no, because no one's going to be talking. Everyone's deathly quiet, just raiding and clearing the content. And my point is, I think GDKPs are bad for the game long term, but 100% necessary right now. Because there's no reason to have them removed. Because in the current state of Anniversary, GDKPs being removed does not make Anniversary a better experience.
It
but
doesn't.
For Classic Plus and future versions,
but you
don't
have
add that shit.
You have to get the player base away from it sooner, because you have to understand, if you allow GDKPs now, then they're going to want GDKPs in TBC. And that means right at the start of Classic Plus or whatever comes in, guess what every single form, guess what every single QQ, guess what everyone's going to talk about? I want GDKPs. Why? Because you're ripping it from them right then and there. You have to rip off the Band-Aid now, so then they can start growing. You have to change the person's fixation. If you let it here now, they're going to be fixated when the game comes, and you have one chance. You have one shot, especially in this world. One fucking shot. If you add GDKPs now, then they're going to want it in TBC. And if you're going to give it to TBC, or even if you don't, it doesn't matter. It's still closer to Classic Plus. You need it gone. It's already been gone. Keep it gone. You have to let them learn. It's like a breakup. If you just break up right at the start of Classic Plus, no GDKPs, homie, you're gonna be fucking derailed. You're gonna be like, oh my God, bro, what? This is ass, this is ass. And guess what? You're missing all the beauty. And all of that is gonna seep into how players treat each other, how they treat the game, how they treat the world. No, you can't.
So I do have a question. Do you think it's GDKPs that broke the social construct, or do you think it's the community that broke the social construct? Do you think the GDKP problem is GDKP's fault or the community's fault? And like, which?
It's Blizzard's fault. It's no one else's fault than Blizzard's. What do you mean, bro? 350 mob fucking Mara? Get that out of here. No GMs? Get that out of here. Bots everywhere? Get that out of here.
True.
Well, hold on. I don't know. Well, let me ask you this. I mean, how can it be? Well, here's the thing, and I'm not shilling for Blizzard. I can care less if they get packed up or not. At the end of the day, I still love WoW. But I'll still say this: how can it all be Blizzard's fault if it's not from the community that started the GDKPs themselves? They're the ones who started the GDKPs. Now, I'm not saying Blizzard can interject and just say, stop, there you go, done. It's finished, that's it. We're not doing this shit no more. Here's a policy, TOS.
For sure.
But it started from the community, and the community, they still thrived upon it. So we can't just all say it's 100% only on Blizzard at that case, because I do think sometimes, and it's a hard pill to swallow, but us as the community don't like to accept facts and truth. And I think there's some point when we like to point the fingers at everybody else except ourselves. And I'm not saying Blizzard is innocent here, but I'm just saying
it's Blizzard, and it is also us. Absolutely. However,
that's all I'm saying.
The changes in the game that led up to then GDKs being what GDKPs are today. Does that make sense? There was GDKPs back in Wrath. There was GDKPs in TBC. There was GDKPs back in Original Vanilla. Now, they weren't prominent, but because of the changes, because of the things that have happened over time, GDKP just became more and more popular by design because of what Blizzard was doing to the game. If there was a one-layered server, right, and there wasn't mage boosting and all this other stuff, it would be interesting if there was an authentic GDKP, right? Imagine GDKP with no gold buying. Well, that's a can of worms that we haven't opened up yet. Imagine that world. Well, that was kind of the world technically back then in somewhat ways. But like when you look at it, it is absolutely Blizzard's fault, and it is absolutely our fault as well. We have bought into the idea, but again, if you give a kid candy and then you sit him down and then you put a whole fucking jar full of candy next to him and walk out the room, who's to blame? Who's to blame? Of course we're good. Bro, I want the freaking dude, they went to the candy store yesterday and they got the freaking Sour Punch straws. Dude, jar full of Sour Punch straws, raspberry or blue raspberry flavored. And they walk out the room and they're like, oh yeah, like don't eat it. We're just gonna go. Homie, like they set ourselves up to fail. Because again, you give a player an inch, they're gonna take a mile. Just look at New World. New World, players found a dupe to then copy gold and items and ruin the entire game. Players legitimately ruined the entire game, the entire fucking possibility of a new MMO thriving. Players did that. Players did that. So if players are willing to do that, what are players willing to do? And this circles back to our first topic: changes or no changes. Well, if you do no changes, the players are going to kill it. Players are going to ruin it. Because Blizzard has set things up to be ruined, for it to be ruined, and players are going to piggyback off of that and then actually ruin it. That's why changes need to be made in order for it to be kept, the integrity to be re-intacted, right? And then the game to actually be a video game again.
It's kind of interesting because I was just thinking about it. If you look at 2019, GDKPs didn't start getting popular till around AQ's phase, and they didn't really start taking off until mid-late Nax, and then they blew up in TBC. It became the go-to thing. I think in Wrath of the Lich King, most guilds were doing GDKP to some degree or another because it was just so much more efficient of playtime. And it's kind of interesting because you see the same problem with retail as you do in Classic is time put in versus a reward taken out. And GDKPs will always reward you for your time. Even a bad GDKP, even a GDKP that fails, you're still rewarded for the failure. And in retail, you have looking for raid. If you're not a good player, if you're not a great player, you can either pay for a run or just go looking for raid and you still get something. It's not great, mind you, just looking for raid gear. And I think it's a community problem in the sense that people are at that age, that time, where nobody wants to do anything for no reward anymore. And I think the playstyle we're looking at with the loot councils and the communities and all those kinds of old styles aren't popular anymore because you're not always rewarded for your time. And people have played this game so long, so many times, that they know what's coming. They know how it looks, how it plays out, how it ends up being. That people just want to play the game at the end because that's all that's left for the average player, in vanilla at least, or in TBC even. Because when was the last time you heard somebody say, I have a blast leveling? When was the last time you guys enjoyed leveling a new character to 60 or 70?
I love that shit. I boost because it's
the right character to say.
I boost, but I only boost because it's in the game. But I think the world is great. I feel like I would want to add, like, imagine if you were a lab rat. You're like, imagine what type of lab rat you're creating when you are rewarding even failure. What type of player are you? How do you expect to even have a player anymore if you're now? Yeah, I think you're muted. But how can you even begin to look at the player base that's playing your game if you are conditioning them to be rewarded even when they fail? And World of Warcraft isn't necessarily a punishing game. They by design made it very friendly where you only have to walk necessarily back. But now with the GDKPs, it's taking it a step further. So what do you think happens to the evolution of the lab rat if you if you make them have to do something, but if they fail, they still get rewarded? Well, why the fuck am I even going to try then? Because if I'm going to fail, I'm still going to get rewarded. Does that make sense? If the rat has to go through the maze to get to the cheese, in order to get the cheese, but GDKP, the rat doesn't even need to go through the maze anymore. He can still get there. And then the little scientist Blizzard is going to drop the cheese right on him. And like, I know that's a little bit more of a dramatic example, but I think it translates perfectly to the reward structure that you're conditioning your players to be. And that's why you're seeing the fragility and the fragileness in the players. I use the meme all the time. The player base is full of microplastics. You have people AFKing in EV. You have people wanting to get teleported everywhere. There is no more Warcraft. It's everything is less friction.
Like simulation craft.
It's no friction. Yeah. And so what ends up happening is, by design, you are rewarding the player to be accustomed to never, ever, ever feeling like they are not having progress. And what ends up happening is, if they don't get progress when every single time they've been rewarded, even when they failed, they're going to be like, bro, screw this. I don't want to play this game. You have to understand that people also have conditioned perspectives, and that these things go into the psyche and the subconscious, and it actually interacts into the behavior of the player. So you can't even have this structure in the game, because what ends up happening is you're now cultivating an audience that is actually going to be detrimental significantly to the game. However, maybe they're doubling down on the audience where they're like, yo, we just going to double down on the rats that love to fucking not go through the maze and get the cheese, but they're just going to like boost to 60, GDKP, boost to 60, GDKP, no matter what, you're always being rewarded. And like, imagine that guy doing a fucking quest that has a low drop chance. Dude's losing it. Homie's gonna kill like 3 mobs and be like, fuck this game is like ass, I'm not gonna play that. Well, is that by the design of the game, or is that by the design of the systems in the game conditioning the player to then have a current perspective on the game, which then is not allowing them? It's putting on the fucking drunk goggles, bro. Everyone is legitimately playing the game with drunk goggles, and they're like blinded and they can't even see. I mean, it's crazy, bro. So that's, again, like another layer where you can't have GDKPs. You just can't.
So I think the problem is and I get where you're coming from. I think the issue is you're looking at this from a sense that the community would play the game the right way if they were given the option. I think the community will only play the game in the idealistic, vanilla-esque vibe of the world if the devs actively force them to. And I think the problem is, as the game has matured, as the audience has matured, I just don't think it's feasible anymore. Because even if they don't let GDKPs get into the game, I haven't seen a loot council run in a while. I'm sure loot council exists. It's all soft reserve.
No.
It's always about playing a game in a way where it's like as efficiently as you can possibly be. Because I think we're at the point of modern gaming where efficiency is the most important thing, then community, then everything else follows step by step afterwards. When it used to be community and friends, and then the loot was secondary, that was the vanilla vibe. And even back then, people still cared about loot. And I think right now, the player base only truly cares about efficiency. And I don't think there is a solution to that with the modern day classic player base. But that's just my opinion. I could be wrong.
I'm not talking, when I talked about everything, I'm not talking about the community. I'm talking about the game and the actual designs and the philosophies behind the game designs and the implications that these game designs introduce into the video game. I'm not talking about the community. I'm not talking about a specific raid, SR, or anything, or how it would even do on anniversary. I'm talking from such a macro perspective that you couldn't do this in any game. You couldn't do this in Riot's MMO. You couldn't do this in other MMOs. And this is a design philosophy that would cause the failure of a game. I'm talking from a game development standpoint, not where the current classic WoW community is, where the current anniversary stuff. And to circle back to the anniversary thing, most runs on this server is either Discord GDKP or it's a SR with loot council on high tickets. So most of it is, yes, you can show up and like SR your thing, but for the most part, a lot of the guilds that are gamers, a lot of the good stuff, DFT, early CTSs, Nelf's tier, whatever, blah, 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 all that stuff is typically loot counseled out to the gamers. So it's kind of a hybrid thing. When I was on Alliance, we tried to do a pure loot council. We did it at a weekend time where the consume prices were so high that it caused a little bit more frustration. And I think loot council is a very challenging system. I don't know even to this day what the best reward system is. They're all of them have their drawbacks, all of them have their bonuses, but at least with it not being a GDKP, everything that I talked about with the lab ratting stuff, at least you don't have that. Like from a game design philosophy and standpoint, you just can't have it, regardless of anniversary. If it's the best thing ever, it's just not.
I think loot council's based on a system of trust as well, right, guys? Like at the end of the day, like I raid with Crusade and Aftershock over there on Season of Discovery, and I feel like with a bunch of the boys that I've played with, and all the amigos, like we base everything on a system of trust, and we build values with each player. We talk with everybody in the Discord, and it's a sense of friendship. And I think that's what World of Warcraft's all about, is building community, building bonds, and elevating even players that are quote unquote to some others bad players, but trying to help them to improve, helping the rotations, going with them, and making them learn, right? And I do think for some people, they get a bad conception of loot council, but at the end of the day, at least it's player based. It's not you going to GTG.
Yep.
It's not you going to overgear.com.
Yep.
It's not you going to eBay to buy a third wife in Indonesia. It's not about any of that, all right? It's about the player. And that's what I love. And with our guild, we've been clearing every week, killing Calderin. People are getting Ashbringers like candy now, which I think is kind of a problem, even though I got one myself. but I fished for mine. I got mine real. But regardless, I'll tell you this much. I think, in a way, Loot Council is one of the best options besides SRs, which is an option. I see a lot of people do SRs, the high ticket. I know you're talking about an anniversary. But I do think it's the best form of any type of loot handling situation compared to GDKP. I will give
Yeah.
you that. I prefer Loot Council and actual bonds and friendships with
Yeah.
people where you even meet some of these people. I mean, hell, there was documentaries of people. Hell, the Netflix documentary with that one kid where he met these people in real life. You know what I mean? He was a rogue and he was playing
You think
behind the
that's going to
screen.
happen with GDKPs?
Yeah, I mean, no, I agree with you on
Yeah.
that. I actually 100% understand that point of view, and it opens up an eye in my mind where it's like I get where you're coming from in my perception. So I actually 100% agree in that scenario.
And also to add to it, if it was a one-layered server and not a mecha server, there would be more loot council. But the problem is with multiple layers and having over 50,000 players on one single server with maybe active like 15 or 20 at a time or something, it's some insane level. It's almost impossible. Again, I said it earlier. Players no longer become players. They're a class slot in a fill, and it's no social hierarchy, and people start feeling more invisible. People are more dispensable, right? Because you're not clawing or fighting for a raid roster. It's just like, oh, bro, screw this guy. I'm gonna get a new one, and that all plays into an account, right? And circling back to how you even said, well, GDKPs allow for players to be more passionate about actually clearing the raid. Well, if there was a one-layered server and there's fewer players that are allowed to have access to be logged in, there's fewer guilds, smaller pool base, more committed pool base. The officers in the guild now want to help out the new players because they're more inspired and wanting to actually fill out their roster and keep it consistent, because the ability to just shuffle in and out doesn't necessarily exist. So it makes more sense from an investment standpoint to invest in the player that can show up for the time slot and teach them, versus on the mecha servers, get the fuck out, replace, get the fuck out, replace. It's so easy. You're dispensable. So then from there, you can actually have a loot council system. And then from there, the foundation is now, there's two layers to the foundation of loot council. You have the top and the bottom. The top, this is the GM and the core officers, the core crew that actually started the guild and did everything, the trickle down of recruiting the guild. However, you can't just reward those guys. Doesn't work like that. The foundation is now all the new people. The true foundation of a loot council isn't the top, it's actually the bottom. The complete new randoms that want to just go on the journey with you and figure this shit out. They're the actual number ones. Now, of course, you're going to have people that drop off, but you're going to have a significantly higher rate of drop off on the mecha servers versus an actual one layer. And on top of that, because of what I said earlier about the investment, when you invest in those players, now loot council is completely, everyone sees eye to eye, because it's two circles, outside and inside, but they have to come together to an agreement on why this gear is getting awarded to a specific player. And so all of that now starts to flow perfectly. Do you see how loot council becomes absolutely fucked out of whack with mecha servers and like the shuffling of players, and no longer, because again, I grew up on a server where there was a hierarchy of guilds and you would have to legitimately farm dungeons to get an epic, because just to get into the trial based guild, you had to have an epic. So there's guilds full of blues, then there's a guild with like 1 to 3 epics, and they're like kind of clearing MC, and then it goes up and up and up. And then you have like the big dogs that are full clearing, but you're not getting a slot in that. So that hierarchy is where, when you have that lower pop server, everything works so well. And I don't mean lower pop by like, there's no one in the world. I'm talking a max pop full server with a queue, with GMs that don't allow bots to just be 25% or 35% of the population, like an actual genuine maxed out server. And I would even beg to say that with modern, they could even have higher amounts of players and still keep it one layer. And there's a sweet spot to like maybe raise the pop even more with still keeping the integrity. And then from there, you're gonna see such a beautiful infrastructure of loot council. You'll still see SR, but you will absolutely see a very beautiful infrastructure and balance between those two. I do think modern day SR has been super prominent, that a lot of people like that. I just wanted to highlight that these mecha servers erode those systems. and they don't let them flourish because of how players treat each other and the dispensability of players. And that is, by the way, by design through retail. Because retail by design was just a queue simulator, and that queue simulator player habits seeped into Classic WoW, and then now are kind of plaguing the way players interact with one another and treat one another in the game, and just treat the systems in the game as a whole. Sorry for my yapping, but I just wanted to mention that.
No, I believe it.
Am I fried? Am I fried? Do I feel like, am I cooking? I don't know.
Did you smoke something?
Depending on the chats you're reading, there are certain people that despise your takes on GDKP, but that is just the state of the game. People are going to dislike what you say. People are going to love what you say. It's 50-50. But that does bring a question. It's like, not counting Classic Plus, like adding new raids and new dungeons, like, you know, ignoring the plus content. What changes would you actually make to Classic? Like, the core game, say it's just a fresh server.
Easy, bro.
Okay. Go ahead. Let's hear this list. I'm actually curious. You fix Classic and make it big.
All right.
Dialed in.
First off, we're changing some shit.
Okay.
Things are getting changed. The ability for you to acquire gold inside dungeons off of like grays and stuff completely changed. One of the biggest faults to the economy is the ability to purely abuse gold acquisition and gold XP in dungeons. Dungeons need to be completely refabricated, and like how players are transversing them through them and acquiring things. For example, going through Dire Maul West and just doing a run for a guaranteed thorium, abso-fucking-lutely not. Thorium, Black Lotus needs all that stuff needs to be out in the world. So there's no mage boosting. That's getting gone. There's going to be less XP from dungeons, but the quests are going to be triple, if not quadruple. The quests are the main part. That's going to allow players to go through these dungeons, experience them, and be heavily rewarded, but not turning them into a toxic thing where if it's a fresh server, no one's out in the world, everyone's just fucking off in a dungeon, and you see all your streamers like, bro, I got to do slave pens. Bro, I got to do slave pen spam. Bro, we got to like boost. No. Play the damn game. What that does is stretches out the first phase and makes people now level and not get to end games so damn fast. Secondly, Warlock summons, as I said, that needs to absolutely go. Either completely gone entirely, or doing something where only a 60 and you can only click with 60s and it can only be to like one person. I don't necessarily know, because again, it could just be a new guild requirement that you need a 60 Warlock and you need 60 clickers, because people are so degenerate. In my opinion, take those things out. Another thing I would love to do is expedite the flying. So if you want to go somewhere, it's a straight shot, not a zigzag, and make it like 15 to 25% more. Create a Zeppelin from Ogremar to either the shores of Tenaris or to Thousand Wind Post, the Wind Post or whatever, and Thousand Needles. Create a boat for Theramore, Menethil, and Darkshore that goes all the way down to Feralass. It connects the southern hemisphere of Kalamador. So now you can actually get to Silithus quickly instead of being like, oh, bro, I need a Warlock summon. You essentially need to take away Warlock summons, but then support the players on having a little bit more efficiency with travel that promotes world traffic and promotes the world to feel more alive. What this does is when you take away something, you're now supporting it with like an even more of a quality life that actually supports the quality of life of game. Not a quality of life to the game that erodes the actual quality of life of game. It's quality of life for the game and the player, not just the player, and erodes the world. So now you have no Warlock summons, faster travel, no mage boosting at all, higher XP on quests, one layer, in-game GMs. Honest to God, I think ZG should probably be a 40-man raid. I don't think ZG on a 3-day, I think it's just too fast. The 20 men on a 3-day lockout, it's too fast. People are gearing up too quickly. And then big thing that I love, PvP world buff. You turn in 50 marks of each BG and it drops a world buff in your city. Also, you should be able to be in any city. You should be able to be getting the world buff in Darnassus, Ironforge, Stormwind, Thunderbluff, anywhere. So you can be anywhere. So players that are leveling, they can always kind of come together at the cities. This makes all the cities feel alive and thrive. Whether you're leveling in the Barrens or anywhere else, you can always just get there. So then you have the 50 marks for everything. So PvPers and the PvEers are now going to PvP because everyone fucking sweats in the game. And then you have the PvP world buff, which is massive. Buff honor from AB and buff honor for Warsong Gulch to make it more incentivized. Even though it's really hard, I've ranted on this. It's very delicate. I still think AV would still win, but maybe if they boosted it up a little bit, put a 20-minute timer on Warsong Gulch for the love of God, and also remove the invisible jumps because that has completely killed the community. It's really good for a very micro niche and competitiveness, but outside of that, it's non-existent, and people just want to play Warsong Gulch and not play cat and mouse with some dude doing invisible jumps. From there, 40-man raid for ZG, 40-man raid for AQ20, and make it like a 5-day lockout, so it's on an Onyxia rotation. Once a month, 60-man raid. Yeah, or an 80-man raid, once a month lockout. There needs to be something bigger. There needs to be something bigger. Maybe I'm on plus. Sorry, I'm on plus. Going back to classic. All the gold, the best gold farming needs to be auction house, or the only way to farm gold would be out in the world. So like actually killing mobs. This creates conflict and a lot more people out in the world. If Blizzard's not going to fix the bots can't go into the system that they're manipulating and they're breaking. So the bots have to go out in the world. Well, if the bots are out in the world and they're trying to raw farm gold, well, players are going to have to also raw farm gold, and they're going to group up and kill. And then also now we're going to have territories because it's one layer and there's just going to be so much war all the time. World of Warcraft is actually now World of Warcraft. Get rid of DHKs. You're going to start seeing more world PvP. Get rid of DHKs. Make all the NPCs non-killable. What this does is allows people to do city raids. It allows people to do group raiding. It allows people to do world bosses. DHKs are so fucking toxic. One person, one bad apple can seriously affect players' actual experience in the game, and one player should never, ever, ever have that much power. It is way too much power for someone to be evil, and DHK should just did not age well. Get rid of that and keep the current ranking system, but don't allow it where you skip ranks. It should be around 12 to 16 weeks for rank 14. It shouldn't be a quick 8. And then from there, I think it's kind of hallelujah. I literally think you have a fucking amazing game, and there's the foundation intact. And then from there, Classic Plus, you add the fucking zones, you add all of that super dope stuff, all the just cut content, you just add and fill it. You've now fixed all the holes from the leaky bucket in Classic WoW, and now players are able to play the game, and now you're expanding upon it. The original idea, holy shit. I swear to God. Oh,
that
man.
was a list. That was a hell of a list.
That was a performance.
Bro, I got it.
There's a few things I want to touch on because they're interesting ideas.
Encore.
Thank you.
It was lovely. So my first question, 80-man raids. You mentioned that.
Yep.
Walk me through an 80-man Molten Core.
Well, it wouldn't be Molten Core. I'll walk you through it. So, everyone loves the AQ Encourage event, right? Everyone loves Vanilla WoW because of the larger raids. I think we all know the feeling of going down to Onyxia's lair and seeing her sleep, and all the boys were fucking lined up, and we're like, listen, some of y'all motherfuckers are gonna die. You know what I'm saying? Some of y'all are gonna die. Some of y'all are gonna get thrown in the whelp cage and just eaten by baby Godzillas.
Not me, I bubble.
Hey, not him, he bubbles. But it's that sense of like camaraderie. Now, the reason why it's a 1 month lockout, because a weekly would be too intimidating. But people could work around the schedule on a 1 month. This would be the fucking raid. This would be you feel alive. This would be holy shit, we're here. This would be large dungeon room, big boss, supremist level, right? Supremist TBC level where you just look up. Holy fuck. You see shoulder to shoulder, it's all your homies. We're a fucking squad. You know what this also does? If a guild can't fill out a roster, 2 guilds come together. Politics, social, you know what this is? This is really, really sticky glue to create relationships and also to break them. But it would be this beautiful, like, whoa, this shit is so alive. Smaller guilds are going to band together. Big guilds are just going to be like, nah, we want this for ourselves. Beautiful, stretched out social structure once a month. Banger fucking boss. It's hard to kill. It's not a show up and get it. It's not a show up and get it. You got to come buffed and you got to get it. You got to earn it. Unapologetically, you got to earn it. I'm talking pre-nerf Uranus type shit. I'm talking homies are going to grind for it. But it's this kind of like, oh, fuck, it's raid night. Because I feel like we don't really get that feeling of, oh, fuck, it's raid night. Like what? Like, whoa, we're going out. And so that once a month, larger scaled raid, not 120, maybe 60 even, if it's not 80. The reason why I like 80 is because of the dynamic of it. But there's something so amazing about Vanilla WoW and 40-man where it feels alive. It feels like it's just the right number. Is it a pain in the ass to fill? Yes. But it's only a pain in the ass to fill because everything we just yapped about for the past 2 hours. Yeah. So I feel like imagine, for example, not World of Warcraft. Imagine a game that was like super thriving and you could always fill a group, right? Just play the imagination with me. Would you rather have a 25-man raid or a 40-man raid?
Okay, so for me, that's a multifaceted question. If you're asking me on the regular, how many people I want to raid with, I honestly think 10 to 20 is a sweet spot. I think no more than 25. If you're asking me as like a one-off event, like you said, once a month, because when you said 80-man raid, I initially thought you meant like every week it's 80 people per raid, like going to an 80-person MC. But so the clarification is good, like a once-a-month AQ event, like re-happening or something like that. I actually think that's a good idea. That there is a decent idea, and I think it would be really fun for Classic. Plus, in this context,
10 to 25.
Yeah,
homie,
like,
you're done. You're done gearing in 2 days. Where's the scarcity of gear? Where's the scarcity of gear acquisition?
So I don't actually agree with that. I'll explain my point of view. I just want to answer the 80-man thing real quick. And with the 80-man once a month event, I think that's actually really solid and would be really fun. And like, I don't think the loot should be. I think it should be cosmetics or fun stuff, so everybody gets together. 80 of us, yeah. Who gets the mount? Who gets the pet? Like, you know, those kind of like vibes that the community rallying together to guild, because 80 is a lot of people. I think that would be really, really fun as a once a month event. In regards to the actual raid size, I'll tell you why I think 10 to 25 is the peak. 10 to 25 is peak because the guilds are smaller, so you actually know everybody. The personal relationships are more healthy. You actually have time to get to know people. Because right now in vanilla, if I go to any average guild, I'm not talking about the sweatiest guilds, right? And I actually am friends with and I've played with world first raiders. The average fun casual community in guild, you don't know 10 to 20 people in that 40-man run. If you've ever been in a 40-person guild, you're good friends with 5 people, your acquaintances with 10 to 15, and you occasionally play with about 20 people there because there's no time, you do not have enough time to feasibly play with 40 people consistently. If you do, you're a content creator, you're a full-time WoW player, or you're unemployed. But a 10-man or a 25-man raid team, that's more tight-knit. You actually know the people. You don't know everybody very well, but there's more time to play with people, more time to do activities, more time to hang out. Less loot drama, because there's less loot in general, right? Like, you're not dropping. Anniversary has a loot problem. A lot of people did rank 14 because there's no point even raiding, because there's 2 or 3 drops per boss, and there's 40 of us, and there's 27 warriors. So I disagree with you on the 40 being the right size for raid. But that's just personal opinion. Everybody is allowed to. So I would love to know I would love to know your stance then on gear acquisition, because 10 to 25, it completely removes the awe factor, especially when you look at it from a mecha server. If you have 10 to 25 man raids and you have a mecha server with 50,000 players, let's just say all of them, let's say half of them are raiding. Well, that is like 4x the amount of raids that are going out, which means there's going to be 4x the amount of ZG Tigers, 4x the amount of Thunder Furies, 4x the amount of whatever epic weapon or epic item. And you know what that ends up doing is it makes it not as cool. So the issue is you have to find the balance act between social
and also the gear hierarchy. Like, yes, you're right. A 10-man is a lot more closer. However, when you have a 10-man raid or a 25-man raid, you kind of don't really need to do anyone else or anything with anyone else in that. And it almost becomes like self-isolating. When you're 40-man, sometimes your friends aren't online in the guild. And maybe that might be a moment where someone new can help you. But it's kind of like, well, if their homies ain't on, maybe I'm not going to do anything or I'm not going to be on. But if you have a 40-man raid, maybe someone new will want to help you. Maybe someone new is there. And then on top of that, you're still protecting the guild or the gear acquisition hierarchy. If you remove anniversary and you remove rank 14 right now, what was so amazing about WoW? We never really saw Thunder Furies. Well, you see Thunder Furies everywhere. My homie here said a little earlier, everyone's getting ash candies. It's dropping like candy. He had a problem with that. I wonder why he's having a problem with that. Oh, that's right. It's 25-man raid and it's dropping a fucking laundry list of items. People get done super fast. Again, circling back to the reward structure of the GDKP, the rat is being rewarded even when he fails. If the rat is being rewarded even when he fails, then what is the meaning to anything? If I can show up to a 25-man raid and there's 4 items that are dropping each boss, the likelihood of me coming out with a piece of gear is going to be significantly higher. However, me having meaning, me having purpose to that gear will be less because Little Timmy, Steven, and Jake will all have it next to me. The reason why CTS is CTS, the reason why BOA is BOA, the reason why OSG is OSG is because 40 people are going after it once a week and only one person, very important, can get it. Or a lucky ass motherfucker. You lose all of that. That is why large scale raids are always better because it supports the social hierarchy. It supports the gear scarcity. Everyone wants the Lamborghini, bro. That's why we play this fucking game. We want the Thunder Fury on our back. I don't want Thunder Fury on my back if everyone has Thunder Fury. If I can go to Westfall and do a fucking quest for Thunder Fury, I guarantee you no one's going to have Thunder Fury on. And everyone's going to be like, oh, bro, you're cringe. You're just trying to flex Thunder Fury. Like, dude, it's ass. Scarcity creates the care. People want things that other people don't have. And you can't have it with low raids.
So I 100% get what you're saying from that loot scarcity is important, but the issue is loot scarcity is not done right in vanilla, at least not an anniversary, because if the loot scarcity made the game a better experience, a better version, just made it so people actually care, people would not be going to do the rank 14 grind for 10, 8, 12 weeks hardcore. The reason loot scarcity works is when it's on an actually rare item like Thunder Fury. Or, for example, at Yesh, adding loot scarcity to actually high-ticket items is the only time loot scarcity makes a game better. I have never heard anybody say, I've raided 8 weeks or 12 weeks to win, I got 1 shoulder tier piece, and I got an off-piece legs, and I got 1 off-piece weapon that wasn't even that great. I enjoyed my 12 weeks of raiding. A lot of people start getting bummed and burnt out, and that's the reason GDKPS is so popular, because it ties back into that. When you make loot so scarce, so difficult, people are going to go to the system where they can get the loot, and it leads to a negative feedback loop. Hence why 40-man raids were good for vanilla back in the day, but the only reason they even did 40-man raids, they even said this, was because EverQuest had 80-man raids. They tried to make it more casual and accessible, and 40-mans was casual. And then they realized that the average guild and community doesn't actually like 40-man raids, the hassle of organizing, the hassle of a loot system, this loot scarcity of making sure you have the right amount of people. Because again, the loot scarcity is an issue in vanilla and anniversary because there's 27 warriors, not because there's not enough loot. So much loot goes to the trash because the tier is bad. Like, knowing now what we know about the game, vanilla's loot itemization, at least until Blackwing Lair, is dog shit for the most part. And the 10, 25-man raid bracket sizing, if we had the same amount of loot, 2 to 3 drops per boss, that's still good. It still takes weeks, if not months, to gear out your character. I do agree with you that loot scarcity does add that element of community and grind and like, holy shit, I finally got this. I got a CTS. I got Nelf's tier. I got, holy shit, I haven't been a warrior in so long. What's that one trinket that everybody, DFT.
I think you
and you get that, you're like, amazing. But
Can I
I
jump
don't
in?
think it's good for the game. So go ahead. Sorry.
The thing is that one, I don't know anyone that's rating 12 weeks. I think that was kind of like an unfair representation. 12 weeks, one shoulder, one like other item. That isn't by any means what I was trying to go for. What I'm trying to say is, in Season of Discovery, I think we can all agree, homies are fully tiered out probably by like week 2 or 3. And everyone's just done. Everyone's done with the game, fully geared out, and everyone's walking around with the same exact thing on. And at that point, you're just leveling it all. So the thing is that when you introduce 25-man raids, again, I'm coming from a game design. When you introduce 25-man raids, you are now pretty much trading the game for an altaholic, and it's not even a game to main anymore. Because the gear acquisition is so fast, the playback loop will keep the player dried out and dried up, and they're like, okay, the only way for me to continue on from the game, if they're not a PvPer, is to legitimately just level up a new alt. That isn't good game design. It's just not good game design, because that means there's no depth, and that you're just carrying on the stick the dude post 3-4 weeks on a main and then just go and play a new alt. The reason why the gear scarcity is important is because when CTS drops, it gives a purpose for you to try in the raid and to like earn it. When CTS drops, people want to be the first one to get it, so they get world buffs, so they learn how to parse, so they learn how to play the game, they come prepared, they learn the fight. This whole like, I just want to show up mentality, it's just too soft. The show up mentality and like getting rewarded, again, it's literally just the lab rat. We've been conditioned so hard, and we're conditioning ourselves, not just Blizzard, but just in so many things, to be rewarded through failure. Like, it's going to completely ruin everything. Again, no one wants ZG Tiger if everyone has ZG Tiger. What is it then? What are we even playing the game for? If we aren't going to
interject real quick when you get it,
you jump in. I'm going in.
If I may, because I feel like you made a lot of good points, but I feel like there's also caveats to those points, if I may say.
Yeah.
The first thing is that I think you made a really good point with cities being like an invasion style thing where the Horde can go into Stormwind and Stormwind can go into Orgrimmar, and vice versa, Undercity, vice versa, Thunderbluff. You know what I mean? I think that would be really cool. Maybe like an hour style event where both the ally and Horde can just go crazy on each other. And it's not like for the Horde achievement or for the Alliance achievement, kind of like we did back in the day. I'm talking about like actually having fun within city PvP warfare for like some type of, per clock of the day. But the one thing you said about, when it comes to when you were talking 80-man raids, and I was thinking about it and I was running it through my head, because I'm trying to understand it, and I could see the craziness in Discord already with 80 plus people. I don't think I could take 10 people sometimes. That's just me, but much love to you. But besides that, I can understand, and I think it would be a vibe, but at the same time, in the classic atmosphere, which is something I wanted to ask you about, is that there's two things I'll say. One, do you think with an 80-man or 60-man, how you were describing it, whether it's a Nixia or AQ or whatever, would the loot stay the same as classic? And because you like to create that scarcity, and I understand that. But number two, how many warriors are going to be in that raid?
For sure.
How many? Because that's the problem with classic, right? From a design perspective, majority of your raid is going to be all plate wearers.
Check this out.
You might have that one ret.
I got you.
It, maybe look. Not.
Hey, I'm gonna change you. I'm gonna change. Listen, I got you. I'm gonna change. I changed everyone's perspective on this. I got you. Everyone talks about vanilla WoW. It's, oh my God, it's so much warriors. It's so much warriors. Listen, Blizzard cooked so hard, and I know they did this by design. When you watch Lord of the Rings, right, and you're watching the war scenes, what is it mostly? I'm gonna ask you, what is it mostly?
Frodo and Sam walking.
Frodo and Sam walking. No, all memes aside, when you're watching the war scenes, what is it mostly?
Warriors, a lot of orcs, a lot of knights.
Yeah,
they're going.
They also have archers.
No, but hold on. I understand that. I'm getting there. But I'm just asking a simple answer.
You got Gimli.
I'm getting you warmed up.
Okay.
When you're watching the war scene, when they're going down and they're touching the swords and they're screaming, "Tonight we fight," all of that, what is it? It's warriors.
Yeah, but
it's hold on. It's melee. The thing is when you look at the PvE as a trope, it should always be predominantly melee with the assistant of the mages, the backline, the warrior or the hunters, the warlocks, the priests, the druids. It's very important that it's predominantly melee heavy, because not only is it the trope, but it creates the experience that is immersive and feels alive. And I'll use 2 examples on why this is very important. When you look at Classic WoW's World PvP right now, if you are not a mage, you're fucked. Mages are so broken because it's all AoE and it's all casting, and there's no front line. There's no support to create 2 sides coming at each other and fighting, and then you have back lines assisting each other. There isn't that trope, and the cavalry of war doesn't exist. Because when you have casters as the meta, it becomes a wizard game, and that isn't even an MMO anymore. It's not even a game that you want to play anymore. Magic meta is not a good meta, because now, why am I going to play a warrior when I can just play a mage or a caster and have so much dominance? And on top of that, what is the cavalry? There is no cavalry. You just dive on each other and spam magic. So you can't even digest. There's no front line. There's nothing to hold. There's nothing to defend. There's no move. There's no dance. There's no tug of war, because everyone is playing range. So the importance of, yes, there will be many warriors in that raid, but you still need to bring things. And that doesn't mean that you can't design the boss. By the way, because there's 80 people, the boss can be very simply designed, because it's harder to get 80 people to coordinate than 40. But you can just design the boss to require the class to do something, whatever that may be, a decurse, a dispel. But that is why it's so important to always have the warriors, because it creates the immersive experience when you're in a dungeon. Now, yes, the kill time right now on WoW, way too fast. If everything was actually organically killed and not just memed down in 7 seconds, yes, I think having a front-loaded front line of melee is 100% needed for the trope. Health of the game, health of PvP, health of world PvP, health for immersion in dungeons, health for just immersion in general. Whenever you watch any sort of anime, TV show, war movie, fantasy, novel, anything, it's always the people at the front lines holding it down, fighting it, and then they get support from the back. It's not just...
Yeah, but would you say they're all Fury Warriors in every piece of anime and show you watch?
Well, that doesn't matter. I mean, yes, I think there should be a variety of melee. I'm not against that. What I'm against is mixing up the dynamic of making more casters prevalent in the raid, because it changes the actual functionality and feel of the fantasy world, turning it into a wizard game and not like an actual like Dungeons and Dragons trope, which it's pretty much designed and built off of.
Can I ask something in this context? This was like something this is a really, really interesting take. And I get where you're coming from, but I don't think World of Warcraft was ever designed around the warrior meta or the fantasy trope, because even in Lord of the Rings most iconic scene isn't the Battle for Helm's Deep. It's Gandalf the Grey fighting the Balrog, or Mount Doom scene where Frodo's holding the ring, or Gollum. The Battle for Helm's Deep and those battles are very iconic. Even the Battle for Minas Tirith, those are all really iconic scenes. But most people look at Lord of the Rings and they look at the fantasy, the magic. Like, what's one of the most popular memes? Why didn't the eagle just fly Frodo and them to Mount Doom? Yeah. And I get what you're saying, that the warrior meta, I do agree that it is that personal fantasy, that clash of metal on metal. Even Warcraft 3 cinematic in the Reign of Chaos, that opening cinematic was the human knight versus the orc warrior, and they were clashing. But I don't think that should be like the basis of the fantasy for World of Warcraft. I don't disagree with you that warrior on warrior is very cool and iconic, but I think when it comes down to it, what made World of Warcraft so popular was that you could be anything, because you are an adventurer in a world with so much magic that anything was viable. We made it warrior meta because it's the best class. We were so min-max and efficiency focused that warrior became the go-to. But I don't think the game was ever meant to really be played like that. But that's just my opinion. So if you want to like continue or interject on that.
Yeah, I wasn't highlighting what was the best moments in Lord of the Rings. I was highlighting that whenever you see war, I mean, you go to Troy with Brad Pitt, or I don't even know the movie's name. I think it's called Troy. Go watch Vikings. Go watch Vikings. What is it? It's melee with the assistance. I'm not saying people are like, oh, dominant world. I don't know why people always just go to extreme and try to twist the things. You need to understand from a game design that there's a lot of moving pieces that are happening subconsciously, and having a good front line with a lot of melee is very important. I do agree it shouldn't just be warriors. I'm not saying it should just be warriors. I'm using warriors as a pawn, as an idea that it is important that there is a lot of melee in the group to create the foundation of like, we are going to battle. Like whenever you're watching anything, it's always been melee, and it not like it's always just been melee, like screw casters. But when you're looking at it from like a design standpoint, say you're playing a mage, you're not playing a mage because you want to be at the foot of Onyxia. You're playing a mage because your archetype and how your brain works, you like distance, you like spacing. Well, what happens if there's no more warriors and there's no more melee and there's no more rep paladins and there's just range and the boss? That is a completely different game that you are playing. So when I talk about 80-man raids and when I talk about raiding in general, the infrastructure should predominantly be 60-ish% or maybe like 55% melee. It should be very heavy on melee because it gives the front line as it is now. I mean, like the vanilla WoW raids are so beautifully separated. I do think sometimes on the super min-max groups, it's a little bit more heavily on the warriors. But if you want to look at it from like a normal, like medium bell curve enjoyment and even slightly above, dude, I mean, like it's really fucking balanced, dude. Like they're pulling in like 2-3 warlocks, 5-6 mages, you got a druid, you're gonna have fucking, if you're horde side, you have literally what, 4 or 5 shamans, then you're gonna have hunters in like each group to buff up the warrior, then you're gonna have like a rogue, you're gonna need like 4 or 5 tanks. I mean, like, bro, it's not even that crazy. It's only crazy when you have min-max insane Andes that are unbelievably good at the game and they can do everything and they do it really good, and then they do that and they only bring warriors, and then that gets the bad frame of like, we're all underrepresented. No, dude, you're not. But to like make it range meta, I'm just simply trying to bring in, it is important to have warriors. It's important to have melee. It's important to
have melee is what you're saying.
Very important to have melee.
My question is, when you say melee meta, you're talking from like that fantasy design, or are you talking from like a gameplay design that it should always be focused on like a slightly heavier melee focus?
So first, yes, I was talking about a game design where like the philosophy on if you're encountering, there should be melee at the boss's feet. It's very important. And then by meta, I truthfully think that it should always be melee as meta, because melee they have to be on the target and they can always pretty much die from the target. And whenever you give casters meta, it becomes incredibly toxic when you look at it from a world PvP standpoint. When you look at it from a PvP standpoint, you can't usually have range as meta because it gets way too overpowered. If you want to use a couple of examples, you already see how strong mages can be in vanilla. If you want to use SOD as an example of more of a modern take, you look at shamans, you look at BM hunters, you look at boomkins from the earlier phases. Because range has the ability to use range abilities, they should always be sacrificing some sort of, there should always be a give and take. And because if you are using range, you either have to be a turret archetype or you're going to be like a dot type archetype. But you should never be able to, if the melee is on you, the melee should, for the most part, win. And it's a very intricate dynamic, but range, everyone should always be able to beat everyone. That is the perfect symbiosis of balance that we've never really got. But in vanilla, you really can turn things around in any class you play. I mean, it is kind of really nice in a lot of ways. But having it heavily based on casters, I think erodes for the majority. I think it is more statistically common for a player to play a melee class than it is range. And so if you support the range for that to be the melee, the meta, and you alienate the melee, then your game will die and it will not be a good game. It will not flourish whatsoever. Not to say we're just going to throw out range and, you know, fuck range and fuck caster. No, 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 no. It is not that. We need them, and it is very important, right? Like, take a look at Vertna. Like, you need to still be able to Vertna. You need to still be able to Drake Dog. You need to still be able to Zaryu, Zico. You need to still be able to do all of that as range. You need that. Like, players need to be able to beat anyone, and players also need to be able to perform in raids. But I don't necessarily think range should be #1 DPS in raids. No, I don't think range should be #1 DPS in range, or in raids. I honestly,
Well,
because
I think that comes to a much bigger question though, because the thing is that, you know, what you were saying with whatchamacallit, how like you feel like, you know, you want these other servers that are like maybe another world where this one layer server exists and all the, you know, the boosting is gone and all that stuff. And I sparked the question to ask you this now because I feel like, you know, when you look at, because I've looked at all the data, right? I've looked at all the parsing and all across. Actually, recently I did a video on this too, talking about like, you know, how balances was from classic and where it ends up being at the end of vanilla, and then how you look at it comparison to season of discovery, and then you fast forward all the way to retail. You look at the metrics side to side to see what specs came into place, what specs came alive during certain expansions, right? And I look at it from this point of view, especially what we're talking about right now in the grand scheme of like, you know, this 80-man, 60-man philosophy of a raid. And I wonder in your world, like that, at least what you're thinking about. One, I get to ask, do you want to see, and let's say down the line, C plus, right? Do you want to see some type of world where the balancing, I understand you want the Warriors from the fantasy perspective, but obviously the min-maxers don't care about the fantasy perspective, right? Let's just be honest. They just want to pump and dump, and simple as that. So do you want in this classic plus world, or at least this alternate server of vanilla, where balance is more in line of other versions of the game of WoW in a way where more specs are more viable, but still the melee are leading the charge in your perspective? Or do you not want it not to be like that, and you still want predominantly Warriors leading the margin by a good percentage? And also, let me add this as a caveat: do you think Warcraft lock should be removed?
yeah, so I'll tackle the first part. It's really, really challenging to buff up the casters because you fall into the trap from a developer standpoint from power creep, feature creep, and mobility creep. So the issue is when you take a turret-based class or a dot-based class, most typically range classes are a turret archetype, which means they can't move when dealing damage. They have to stand still, and it's a charge up. Now, the thing is if you brought that closer to what a melee, which is rapid fire, but has to now be on the target. And again, a lot of the casters, range archetypes, they have abilities to, it's cat and mouse. So melee, we're playing cat, and the range is playing mouse. And then for rangers, they're the mouse running away from the cat. So they have stuff to peel us off, to just kill us, and we have to play the game and play it accordingly to be able to connect to them, and then we win. If in PvE, where you are no longer playing the cat and mouse, all right, and you buff them up, it ruins world PvP and it ruins PvP. You can't balance that. It doesn't work like that. So the thing is that parsers or people that play casters are typically bringing something to the table, dispel, decurse, buffs, whatnot, for the lesser of the damage. Because if they change that and made it where they are DPSing, you're going to see a power creep in world PvP, and then PvP is now ruined. We see this in SOD. Hands down, we see this in any version of fucking WoW. Hands down. Because now the player is going to be given something to maybe be able to deal damage while moving. Well, if they can do damage while moving, well, then what does the melee get? Well, if the range can now do damage while moving, the melee now needs a mobility. And so now we see the game going to shit. The game dies. So do you see how if they try to buff the damage and they try to buff these things? Now, I think yes. Little bit of mana here, little bit of mana there, little bit of tinky here, ha ha hoo. Yes, it's important because some things it's just straight shameless. And just because if they got a little bit more support, it doesn't necessarily mean they would be top damage, but at least they would be a playable role. I do think things in vanilla just are flat out unplayable. However, those things need to be playable and still in their archetype and not be the meta. Because again, when you make range meta, either you force melee to have mobility creep or you're giving mobility creep to the range and the whole game is dead. And then we're just running around button spamming and it has no soul. And we see that everywhere. We see that in every single version of the game, whether it's Sod, Mop, Kata, Legion, WAD, it's all mobility and feature creep. And then it's not even about what it's looking like now, which is already fucking bad. How does the game even thrive 4, 5, 6 years post out? How does the next expansion look like when they're trying to mix things up? Well, at that point, they're going to have to take away because they're going to be like, oh, fuck. Well, guess what? If you're going to take away, oh, fuck, everyone's going to be super mad, right? And so circling back to the perspective, we're getting conditioned. Players are getting conditioned. And then when the player has a certain perspective, they can't even appreciate and see the game for its actual. They're now looking at it because it's like the t-shirt thing, right? Hey, look around the room. How many people are wearing a red t-shirt? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. How many were wearing blue? Oh, I don't know. I was looking at red. What the fuck? Oh, okay. Well, you were just completely blinded. It's like kind of talking when you're in an argument. You just get emotionally like biased. You're so biased by the things that are happening because you're taking it personally that you can't even see clearly. But the problem is you're in the comfort of your home and you're going to log in anyways. And all of that is going to seep into how you treat players, seep into how you view the game. And next thing you know, you're on Reddit, the WoW forums, and everyone is yelling and they can't even see clearly. Circling back, they got the fog goggles on, bro. And so you have to have the range. Unfortunately, the range, in my opinion, in the best way, melee, if you want to top parse, you're top parsing. However, the raid needs to be designed where it's required to have these other classes to do interesting mechanics in order for you to be able to defeat the boss. For example, if Molten Core, with the current meta build of like warriors, if they weren't able to kill the boss in 5 seconds and each boss would be about a minute 23 to 2 minute fight, they would need to have more casters to do dispels and decurses. If that was the case, the only reason why vanilla WoW raids are so heavily melee side is because of the non-adjustment to the boss health and then the current meta of DPS. It has nothing to do with like the ability of the classes and whatnot and like how they actually function. If each MC boss was a minute and 23 second kill time, you would need to have casters abso-fucking-lutely, and it wouldn't even matter how much damage they're doing because they're literally saving the fucking raid's ass. And that is a role-based mechanic. Role-based mechanics are fucking awesome. And you just have to, in my opinion, WoW, it just needs a health buff or some sort of change, and then everything's flourishing. We don't need, the boss's health needs to be adjusted or maybe some sort of mechanic, but the class design, you don't need to touch that. And if you are, you got to be very careful with feature, mobility, and power creep. And when you buff one class, you have to buff another. And how does that dance triangulate and cross over? And you have to be very careful that you don't go a Valorant style approach where you push a bomb site and you have a fucking bot running on site. You're AoEing, teleporting, smoke wall, double flash, fucking laser beams everywhere. You keep it CSGO. You fine tune. You create it. It's like a sword, right? You're sharpening the sword more and more and more. You're fine tuning. You're not trying to create a new sword every single time. No, just make it sharper. CSGO, foundational, and they just made it better and better and better and better over the years. They never tried to do that.
So
I get what you're saying with that. I understand. But Evan, you can go if you want. I don't want to interrupt you.
I was going to say, my question is, do you think it's better to have that melee meta? Or do you think it'd be better, assuming it doesn't ruin PvP? Because SOD, they effectively balanced every class. They're within 5% of each other. I think the best class is only 15% better than the worst class. Not counting Legendary Ashbringer, right? Everything is close. Do you not think that is healthier for the game? Classes still have their roles, their positions, their placements. everything is so close that you can play whatever you want instead of it being that melee focused meta? Or do you think having that melee focused meta is more important, even if it means certain classes are slightly worse, but still necessary for the raid?
I think it just needs to be all about, it's not about the meta. It's about, I feel like it's about the interaction that the players are having in the instance. And like, if you want to say, do I want a warrior meta? Like, I don't necessarily want the warrior meta. It has a bad connotation to it. Everyone's fucking fearmonger. It's a fucking trigger word. To like grown ass men, it's a trigger word. I'm seeing it in chat. Grown ass men, trigger word. Warrior meta. Ah! No, dude. I'm not trying to say warrior meta. I'm simply saying, out of a 40-man roster, to not have it 35 casters with 2 tanks and 2 rogues, like, no. It needs to, having melee in there is really important. And having range in there is really important. I think what's more important than what fucking meta we want to have is, can we not have a 7-second Shazrath kill? The boss's health is causing the meta to be developed. If the boss is not going to do anything other than AoE with like one little dispel, but you can kill it, it doesn't have enough health to actually live. If Shazrath had 5 extra health and you couldn't Zerg it down with 20, dude, if you had a raid with like 8, it would be 32 warriors and like 8 shamans, 1 shaman in each group, and everyone's a warrior. If you couldn't Zug down Shaz or any of the other bosses in 5 fucking seconds, you would be forced to invite a mage. You would have to have the dispel. You would have to have the decurse. It's not about a meta. It's about how can we now fabric or adjust the boss to then now actually create a cohesive raid group. Because if the players are going to figure out something to just mop the floor with one class completely lopsided and kill the boss in 10 seconds, well, fuck the mage, fuck the priest, fuck the hunter, bro. We're just gonna ball out.
Are you talking about, sorry, Tell, I'm just gonna say one thing, then I'll let you. Are you saying that in this context, the other classes would have adjusted damage, or are you talking just current state of anniversary if they just made just boss health change and nothing else?
If they just made boss health change and you couldn't Zerg, you'd have to do the boss mechanics. You'd have to bring in other classes to respect the boss mechanics. Warriors right now are so good because you ignore boss mechanics with world buffs. That's why. You have dads that don't know how to play the game, fucking just macro in, Q heroic strike into their shit, sit in berserker stance and press one button over and over again, fully world buff, nutting at crits, killing a boss in 5 seconds, and checking a third-party website. That isn't the game. That's not healthy to ranged players. It's also not healthy to melee players. If you just if you stretched out the health of the boss, you have to bring in other classes.
That's why I was asking before about like, because I think you're speaking from a sense, because I know you're a PvP guy and I love it. You know what I mean? Hey, listen, I love to do it as well, and I understand what it's like for like a warrior and a mage, and then you're getting fucking sheep for 30 years into the next expansion. I understand that lifestyle too. It sucks. Or getting dotted out of your mind as a rogue and you can't go back into Vanish. I get it, but I'm talking about from at least a perspective from where I'm hearing you out. It kind of sounds like you're speaking also from the PvP side of things as well. You're not just speaking on the PvE side as well, because like that's something I was talking about for a while too, where I ever wondered if Blizzard would consider, if they would actually consider in the future, split balancing, where correlations of abilities are changed depending on if you're on PvP mode or if you're not in PvP mode, whether you're in the world versus not in the world versus in an instance. Can I comment on that? Instance. Yeah, you could.
I think the game the game has to be designed around world PvP and PvP in general. And the reason why is this. If you design around PvP and the player interaction, then the player versus player interaction will be fun. Because player versus player is unscripted and PvE by design is a scripted encounter, it's a lot easier for you to fit in the blocks and make the shapes fit together with the game. It's harder to fit the pieces together with PvP. So if you fit that together and you make it super fun, it's a lot easier to do that with PvE. The issue right now is that they're just focusing on PvE when you can make it fun with the interaction of what the boss is doing. And you can still make it fun with the rotation that you are doing. But you can tailor all of that around PvP, so when you're in PvE, it's also super fun. But when you're in PvP, it's also super fun. Right now, the design philosophy is strictly only really about equality on classes, pumping and parsing, and having no afterthought of the repercussions of adding something into the game that is going to affect PvP. Something like overload, something like kill shot, something like combat potency. These abilities in Season of Discovery that add allowing the class to partake in parsing and be able to provide a good experience in PvE to a boss that sometimes is just standing still. So are we going to design the game around a boss that's standing still? But then when you're out in the outworld, and this circles back to the entire conversation that we just had, one layer, world PvPing, no mage boosting and everything like that. If a player is out in the world and they fight and it's not fun, it's super lopsided, and it's like, man, this feels so bad, they're not going to PvP anymore. They don't want to do that stuff. And that also teaches the player to maybe G2G and boost up and not have to deal with it. Or maybe to just completely remove that side if someone fights them, to just, I'm just going to take the L. I'm just going to ghost walk because it's so busted and lopsided. So now we're seeing the erosion of the entire world. PvPers, the PvPers now, they don't want to play. And when you look at Dream Scythe and Night Slayer, which one's the more populated server? PvP. Why is that? Why is it always the PvP server that always has the life, but no one wants the PvP? Why has it always been this way?
I've got a very controversial opinion on that statement. Cool. This has got me a lot of flack before.
Cool.
The reason people pick PvP servers, they have this unwarranted mentality that the better players play on PvP servers because that's how it used to be. Back in the day, the sweatier, more elite players would always play on PvP servers, and that was like that for the longest time.
Yep.
And to this day, people still have that mentality, even though on average, at the very highest level, yes, they're mostly on PvP servers. But on the average player skill, up until at least the 85th, 90th percentile, it's the same on both. But people struggle to separate that PvP equals more skilled because it's not the case anymore. It's an outdated mindset and it's outdated.
You want to know why? Because Blizzard snipped the balls of the player. They neutered us. That's why. They neutered us. That is why.
Actually, I have a question for you.
I just checked. I think I have them still, but I know what you mean. Most of them.
They neutered us, bro.
Not us.
Yeah.
No, they neutered us.
No.
Hey.
So this is my question. So you talked a lot about classic and these changes and like this, and the game should be like this and like all this stuff. What are your thoughts on TBC as an experience? As a raid, not just a raid, like as an expansion. Where does TBC fall into all of this in comparison to Anniversary? Because TBC Anniversary is coming up soon. It's around later this year. So how does TBC, how do you rank that? How does that feel to you?
I think TBC had the potential of being something really, really great, but I think it is really deviating away from vanilla WoW or just an all-around MMORPG. I feel like it's getting a one step closer to a queue simulator. And where this falls into, or where this comes into, is like you have flying mounts that completely erode the world. You have Shadowrath City where you're now hanging out buds shoulder to shoulder with the opposing faction, completely eroding the meaning of World of Warcraft. And like the whole Alliance versus Horde, something that has been shouted and even Nick's on, literally even Nick's on. She has an Alliance sticker on the back of her car. I feel like that kind of essence starts to, it's still very strong in TBC, but it starts to erode. And for me, I think that TBC is just that. It's just stepping away from Azeroth being the main character, and it's kind of introducing us into the world that I think is just not necessarily what we want. I think if TBC didn't have Shadowwrath, if TBC had no flying, it'd be an incredible game. I think it'd be a lot better. I would like it 40 man instead of 25, but I think we can agree to disagree. Real quick, I'm getting so much balls checks. The reason why I made that comment, just gonna circle back because chat's being silly. The reason why I said they neutered us was because I was referencing back to the development of the game being around PvE and not PvP, and that all the players stopped wanting to PvP. And that's why it got neutered. And then what ends up happening is if you have the people that stop caring about PvP, then people are not, because it's not fun, it's not invigorating, it doesn't mean anything. And when you strip that meaning away, it's now like, why even? Like, why even? That's literally why. And so circling back to TBC though, it was just, chat was going crazy. I am excited for TBC. I'll play it till I will no longer have fun. I already predict I'm going to go back to vanilla because the integrity of the game is kind of in somewhat already jeopardized. I don't like Draenei. I don't like how they look like. I think they should have been presented differently. And I think Blood Elves should have been presented differently. I don't like the models of them and everything. I don't like how, again, there's flying. Flying is definitely, I think, the biggest nail in the coffin for me. I think I could deal with everything else, but the flying, I think, completely ruins it. And Shadowwrath.
So flying was removed. It would be a better world for you. Outland would be better for you. Flying was not there.
Yeah, flying without flying. Sorry, the game would be alive for a lot more of it. There would be a lot more to the game.
Interesting. Did you like arenas? Were you an arena guy?
I do love arena. However, we're not going to get the world where arena is arena anymore. If we wanted arena to actually be arena, we'd have to remove weak ores and add-ons and macros, and it would have to get granular, and essentially you'd have to remove any sort of like computer playing the game for you type stuff. And we're not really not going to get that. So we'll see what Blizzard does. Maybe they ban professions. Maybe they do something. Hopefully they do something with the arena, because it's fun, and I think TBC has one of the best expressions of it, because TBC is the only expansion of World of Warcraft that is taking the CSGO approach with refining and making the game actually better, fleshing out, like you said, some of the other specs and whatnot, without changing the archetypes and the dynamic and eroding the fantasies of the game too much. But I still think that with Flying Mount, for me personally, the game is just kind of gone. Just because of flying
the soul
mounts.
of the world. I get what you're saying from that, and I can respect that.
Your thoughts, Hello? What are your thoughts on all of this?
I mean, as far as like the conversation in TBC, me personally, I was a massive TBC enjoyer. I loved it. I was playing on Benediction during the TBC during the whole COVID era. Probably one of the most exciting times of World of Warcraft, when we were all just going wild and having a good time. I enjoyed doing Karazhan's. I played all the way up to the very end, and I enjoyed it for the most part. PvP was really the one thing I did enjoy the most. But I will say that Shobek is absolutely right when it comes to the open world. That atmosphere does get removed because of flying, and everybody's already trying to get their epic flying off the rip. People just want to farm their materials, go in and out, live in their heroics, and just move through the queues. And it does feel like more of a queue based game that the game eventually shifts into, rather than like, oh, we're just PvPing in the open world all the time, even though you would occasionally have some fights, right? And I have my fair share. But I do think that for me personally, and this is why I'm so biased for TBC, it's the only expansion I ever truly enjoyed. And I know this might sound controversial. I did not like Wrath that much. I think Wrath gets carried by Arthas. I think it gets carried by the trailer. I think it gets carried by the end.
Yeah, I don't like Wrath either.
And that's it.
I agree.
And it's no hate on Wrath. It's no, if you like Wrath, that's fine. I just think it gets carried by nostalgia, it gets carried by Citadel, and it gets carried by Arthas. Those are the three main big things that Wrath is personally in favor for. A lot of other things happen after that, but TBC is the one thing that I can say that, if you really think about it, also from just a grounded WoW perspective, it was kind of the original Classic Plus. It was kind of the only extension to World of Warcraft. But obviously, some people like certain things. Obviously, Shobek doesn't like some things, and I get that. But I would like to see a world also one day where maybe eventually down the line, whether it's a change for Anniversary or not, or whether it's a thing for Classic Plus, where we see an arenas like system. I would really like to see that. And I think it would also showcase players based off of reactiveness rather than using weak auras. They're already doing that in retail right now, where Ian was talking about removing weak auras from the game, implementing their own in-house things.
Yeah, I would love it
So,
if we got that in TBC. If they did that in
yeah,
TBC, it'd be amazing.
yeah, and I think that would be actually insane. I saw a lot of good reception based on that, where people were saying that's an actual rare W for Blizzard for removing other external things to affect your game. And I think I want to go back on this real quick because I don't know if I got your answer clear on it earlier before. But as in terms of this world, like just to dabble on this 1 second, do you think, as far as PvE goes, Warcraft logs removed or not removed? Do you want it gone? Would you like it in this world moving forward? Should they be perma packed or perma just optional? But if you keep it optional, it's always going to remain the same. So what do you think is the solution? Because like you look at it from like, because you're because I can get the vibe, you know, and I just like last time when we had you on too. You're very passionate. You're passionate from the class fantasy, the integrity of the lore of WoW, the core of its player base, the moments that we had in the early days in the early 2000s, all the way fast forward to now, even great moments as well. But what do you think about the logs being present? Do you think it creates more of a problem because people are so focused on the meta, they're so focused on the consumes, they're so focused on the min-maxing of macros and getting the world buffs to try to bring their class aligned with other classes? What do you think is the option? Is it to gut this completely and we come up with a new system, or is it to just move on forward? Because I know FF14 does some different things in terms of how they look at metrics and data, and there's some optional things, but for the most part, they really just want their players having fun in the raids, from what I've seen and what I've heard as well. So, what do you think is your approach on the future of that?
I've thought about it so much, and I think that it's such a hard question to ask. I don't know if there's like a right answer. A lot of the times, I I always try to feel it out. Like in a lot of ways, it feels good to raid and see yourself progress and like see yourself doing better than others. The same way that we want gear, like we want Thunder Fury, right? Like the social hierarchy designed by the DPS meters is also really, it's great, but there's pitfalls and shortcomings. Going back to what we talked about with like range meta, right? Like you're never going to be a caster at the top. So then from there, that's going to promote like player friction and frustration, where like now the devs have to do this balancing act between the game. But it's also really important to give players this quantifiableness, but it's also really destructive and self-destructing to the art of the game and the soul, and things being a mystery and things being knowledge and passed on by players. You talking about how there's no loot council guilds and people investing in each other and teaching them things, because a lot of times it's just like, stop being annoying, just go look at a video, like stop bothering me. But then again, it's just kind of like, when you look at it as a whole, like how would the community actually interact if it was gone? Me personally, I would love it for it to be gone in the game, but I never make a decision because of what I want. I always make a decision on like what would be greater for the actual game. And I think when it comes to a game such as Vanilla WoW, I think because it's been so beaten, that is the only left. It's like the last leg standing to give people to care, because it's the only competition that you have in the game left. And it's the only thing for people to like return and kind of come back to it, especially when you look at no GDKPs and whatnot. So in the sense of classic, I think it needs to be there. But then again, it's in the same vein as GDKPs, where you're not ripping out the ripping off the band-aid. And when Classic Plus comes out, if they decide to keep the damage meters in there, then essentially we're just continuously plaguing our community and not letting them actually be reborn. But maybe it's impossible. Maybe there is no way to reborn them, and the only way to reborn is a completely new IP like Riot, because I guarantee you Riot will not have a DPS meter, and they're gonna absolutely shut that down, because there's something about learning the nuances of a class and the nuances of the game and communicating with other players, and and feel that you are doing good, and and feel when you're doing bad, and that whole thing kind of puts you down the rabbit hole of exploring. And I think that's why so many people in our chats all together fell in love with this game, and you lose a lot of that
Sure.
with the DPS meter, but you do gain some as well. I mean, again, it is nice to have that quantifiable, but there's just such a darkness behind that stupid little chart that you stretch out to see like who's performing. Whether you're a raid leader looking at who you want to cut off as like, you know, extra fat and trim out, whether it's someone that you want to prevent from being in the raid with you because you're looking up your parses and stuff like that. There's so many problems to it, but I don't know how the community would actually react. But I would love it for it to be gone, and I do think it needs to be gone. In a perfect world, I think add-ons need to be completely removed. I think we need to go back to having a start and stop actual bind. I think all of this complexity of using specific things kind of automate the game, and we're just getting closer and closer to just like AI playing it at that point. So it's like, get rid of weak auras, get rid of DPS meters, get rid of all this stuff, make the bosses harder, make the boss's health larger, make it something meaningful for you to kill the boss, make it an accomplishment between you and a group of people. And then I feel like with that, you'll have a stronger support system than right now. The bosses are just so easy and there's nothing else to like really stimulate you. Like you need to add in, if you're going to take DPS meters, you have to add in other stimuli to support and like distract and like let them kind of sink their teeth into something new, because essentially DPS meters is the only thing that you can actually seep your teeth into in the game for the most part. And we're also accustomed to that as well. And that's very, very bad in a lot of ways. So there would need to be plus changes no matter what to the game. You could not just remove the logs to anniversary, to classic. You would have to introduce way more changes to balance out those changes to make them, and in a lot of ways too, you'd probably have to make class changes and rebalancing too, because at that point they need something to completely relearn the class that they've known, to give them like you have to like knock them off their rocker, but you have to knock them off their rocker and like off their balance enough to the point where they don't completely fall, because they'll drop the game, but just enough where you catch them, you clip them, and then they're like, okay, I'm gonna have to like learn this shit myself type stuff, and do a little bit more of that OG thought botting on like YouTube forums and stuff like that. Sorry for the yap, but it's very good.
That was very good, actually.
It's a really hard question, but I don't think it should be in the game.
It's a double-sided sword for sure.
Yeah, no one's winning. There are people that are hurt, and even the people that it's gonna win for, it'll hurt them, and everyone's getting hurt, and everyone's winning. Everyone's getting hurt. It's a very hard.
For me, I have two sides to this equation. Side one is if you remove logs, there is a subset of the player base. I don't want to say the exact percentage, but I want to say 10% of the player base who logs on and has to be like legally blind, playing with their toes, like genuinely some of the worst players I've ever seen in my life. And those people get into raids if you remove Warcraft logs. But at the same time, this is controversial. I would remove Warcraft logs because it would make the world spicier and blacklists would come back in much higher numbers. Now, that is one element. I'm not saying removing Warcraft logs is good for the game, because you're 100% right. Just fundamentally, when you look at the game and how people play, there are enough bad players that if you don't have a metric to see who's bad and how to help them improve, you'll never know. If you rock up into raid, there's no Warcraft logs at all, you won't know if somebody's actually pumping or somebody's underperforming. And for a lot of people, at least in modern gaming, they like to see, I did big numbers, I'm good at the game.
Yeah.
So you kind of need that. So I do definitely agree that I do think Warcraft logs should be removed, but I do think there should be an in-game metric to see if somebody is a good player or not.
Well,
like DPS meters are decent for now, but
so
it's
when you ask me the question, also too, I gotta go upstairs and just use the bathroom real quick, so I'll be right back after this. But they did it in Mists of Pandaria where they did a class hall where you can earn specific badges, and I felt like that was a really good guiding light for players. And I wish I thought about this, but I didn't know if I wanted to bring it up because I just was feeling something else at the time. But that was a really good guiding light to kind of vet the player. Like if you're bronze, silver, or gold, because if you're a bronze healer, through that simulation, they like, you knew that the player could like handle their own. And same thing with DPS. You literally could just go to the class thingy. I don't know if you guys did that at Mists of Pandaria. Did you guys do that or no? It was at
I
the
skipped
end
mob
where
first time.
No, I didn't. Yeah.
Okay.
Actually, this mob coming up will be the first
Okay.
legitimate time I play.
So Miss Pandaria, they had a thing that you would queue into, and it would be a timed thing, and you would earn bronze, silver, or gold. And to earn gold, you have to do a specific amount of DPS in a specific scenario. Take a lot like that the Anubis thing in Seas of Discovery that I see people do. It's kind of like a course that you have to complete, and you are graded on that. Healing, DPS, and tank. You have to like manage a bunch of people, live, kite, DPS, use your cooldowns. Like you have to know and learn when to use your cooldowns accordingly in order for you to get that specific badge. So, I mean, technically speaking, then you would only be inviting gold and silver, but at least there's something in the game that you can like on your own work towards and get better to then earn it. So then everyone looking for raids is essentially just like, yeah, I know this person's at least a gold or a silver. Cool. Awesome. I know at least.
Decent,
Yeah.
sure.
I got to go to the bathroom though, real quick.
Yeah,
I'll be
no
back.
worries. I actually have to take my dog out as well. But before I
Damn,
go,
am I carrying?
before I go, just tell your job, look at Shobek and mine's chat and pick the 3 best questions from chat to ask us when we get back. Good luck. Thank you.
All right.
Chat, we'll be right back.
Yeah. Let me take over ship real quick. All right, chat. I'm gonna be honest with you guys. Hear me out right now. This is the damn setup. All right. They've been paying me for 14 years to come to this moment. I don't even know what's going on. I don't even know if I got paid yet. All right. We gotta pack this up fast. I'm not gonna lie to you. We're gonna need a lot of Twitch primes in chat. A lot of Twitch primes in chat. So lock it the fuck in. All right. Much love to you. I don't even know if I'm getting paid for this podcast. Be honest with you, they might put me on the chopping block if I don't do the right thing. It might be a damn setup. All right. I'm talking CIA. I'm talking deep state. We're packed. All right. We're packed, chat. I have no idea what the fuck's going on. Shobek is spitting like Eminem for 14 minutes. Ebonhardt has left the room. I have no idea what's going on. I'm just an average fucking Joe, bro. I have no idea. The glasses on the glasses mentality. This is fucking. We're locked in, chat. So much love to you. All right. Selfish plug. Much love. However, though, yeah. I think this has been a great streaming experience, but I haven't even got paid yet. Chat, we haven't got paid yet to be here. I have no idea what's going on. Shout out to the Bankai Nation. Shout out to the conspiracy theories at Ebonhardt. Much love to you. Yeah. Besides that, I have no idea what's happening. Dude, I'm 9 vodkas in. I'm about to be 10 vodkas in. We're about to just keep slamming drinks left and right. I don't know how long I could stall for, but brought to you by hand sanitizer. Make sure to clean. Make sure to clean your. Oh shit. Yeah. So, anyways, Warcraft logs, they got to be removed. It's a problem. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I was totally normal the whole time.
What happened?
No, nothing. I said Twitch chat. I said Twitch Prime.
And no one prime, bro. This is looking grim.
Bro, I literally screamed Twitch Prime like 8 times. I swear that's what I did. I didn't say nothing, bro. Yeah. I was just talking about how much we love you. You know what I mean? And yeah.
Let's see.
No, I swear to God. Look at that. Look at what I did. Look what I did.
Hold on.
That's me. What do you mean?
Hold on. What's going on?
Look what I did.
Oh, we got a little Bankai bomb. Okay.
Yeah. See, there we go. Very nice.
There it is, boys. Thank you.
There it is.
So apparently I'm fried, man. I don't know. Guess I'm fried.
You're not fried, bro. Who's saying you're fried?
I guess I'm fried, bro.
No, you're not, dude. I think you're locked in, man. I think you're passionate. You have a good point of view. I understand it. Now, maybe let me be honest with you. Maybe some people think you're smoking the shroom. I don't think so. All right, that's not me, dog. But I believe in you. I've always did.
Well, all I gotta say is, when you look at the current standing of World of Warcraft and where we're at now,
Yeah.
if you think we're in a good spot, I mean, like, how do we even get here? We got here because of everything that we just mentioned. So if you think I'm crazy, you're the reason why we got here. I'm the reason to get back to where we were 12 monthly recurring subs. Holy shit. I'm trying to get us back there. I'm not trying to make this more micro niche than it is. I'm trying to get this thing back, dog.
No,
Sorry, guys.
Yeah, I think you are, and I think at the end of the day, listen, memes aside, I know we all have different takes and we all have different point of views, but I think the strong core of it at the center is that we all want to see classic thrive like it once did, and we want to see it stay alive. We would love to see more implementations that keep the game that we all know and love continue thriving. And I think there's a lot of passion that can happen between either one individual or us three or anybody, even in chat. And it only takes some more discussion and movements to make something happen. With that being said, it's my turn to dip. Don't talk shit about me. Much love to you. BRB.
All right then. Well, Shobek, my man.
Yeah. Anything else? Is there other questions or anything?
There were other questions. Yeah, it's been 3 hours or almost. I was gonna ask, do you need to go or are you good to keep going?
Dude, I'm
we got on so many tangents.
I'm just hanging out, bro.
All right. Okay, we can go on to the next part. And this was more about I was gonna ask more questions about Classic Plus now. So we talked a lot about the base game, about just Classic in general. Yeah. But there are questions about Classic Plus. What quality of life changes would you want? I'm not talking about like big changes, like auto loot, like mass loot, pickup timers, stuff like that. Like, what quality of life changes would you want in Classic Plus?
Don't make the game have larger bags. It's terrible for the screen and immersion and item presence and purpose. So definitely don't change the bags. I think the flying just has to be a little bit more expedited. If we're going to go somewhere, like just make it go straight there and make it like 15 to 25% faster. So people can, it's going to be the main source of transportation. That's what it should be. Quality of life, I would say maybe 5 to 10 more quests. I would like to see, I don't know if this is a quality of life. What would be another quality of life? More than one dual spec. I think you should be able to have like 4 or 5. I think that'd be totally fine. Just to be able to kind of have more of an expression of what you want to play in that moment. This gives PvEers something that they want to do. This gives PvPers if they're out world PvPing, if I want to swap the daggers, if I want to try a combat build, if I want to go back to sub, I don't have to like constantly be like, you know, changing. I think just more actual specs that you can swap between. So it's like dual spec, but like just add 3 or 4 more slots. Because I mean, it's already in the game, and you can have it behind a paywall, similar to like the guild bank, where first one's 50, second one's 250, and the third one's 1,000. Just like a big, large gold sink or something. If you want to come on my throat for those numbers, we can change the numbers. Quality of life, please, for the love of goddamn God, put the barbershop in the game where the character can just do it through monetization or in the game. I've deleted 560s. I've deleted a binding just to play the rogue that I'm playing now, and I'm so tired of it. I'd like more faces. Yeah, I'd like more faces, more hairstyles, more beards, more features, more customizations. I think that would make it super cool for quality of life. For quality of life, I think that's really probably about it. Or maybe make Hearth, because we're making it a little bit more like faster flight travels and stuff like that. I think Hearth shouldn't be on a 1-hour cooldown. I think Hearth should be something that is maybe used a little bit more aggressively. I feel like it's the give and take where you have to set it to a certain spot, which is kind of nice. So maybe like 30 minutes, I think would be cool, or like 20, 25, something where like obviously you're not fucking spamming teleport jutsu, but something where it feels like it's a there's like something a little bit more there when it comes to being able to travel. Again, you don't want to remove, with quality of life, you don't want to remove foot traffic. So if it removes and takes away, then I think not, but maybe something there with the Hearth. Quality of life, I think that'd be pretty much about it. That's on my top of my head. Do you guys have anything for quality of life?
Do you have anything you want to add, Tello? Go ahead.
Oh yeah, I think I have like a
Classic
couple.
Plus, what quality of life changes would you like? Not major like zones or dungeons, like quality of life changes.
For Classic Plus, I think one of the biggest things is that, we were talking about like a lot of flying based stuff, and I think that's really cool, but I would like to see the tram station extended from the underneath of Stormwind where the train goes. I would like to see the train go in multiple different directions as well, where it adds more, social interaction with the community going underground and maybe even some skirmishes underground through the tunnels, a little train fight action. Let me borrow your $20 real quick. You know what I'm saying? I think that would be pretty fun. And it would bring you to other places around, Kalmandor and the Eastern Kingdoms. So I think an extension of the train station with new little hubs and maybe a neutral area where the train breaks down real quick in the middle and the Horde and Ally are both there. And some people might not make it off the train station, and that engages some PvP interaction through the trains, maybe through the tunnels. I think that would be pretty fun. Another thing I would love to see is bounties. Now, I know a lot of things from World of Warcraft where people say, well, you don't want to really take anything from retail, and I get that, but inspiration is a whole nother thing. And changing it for a different format. So in the War Within, you kind of have like, these bounties where you can see a person on the world and you can go for them. But in reality, the system just doesn't really feel that grounded. I feel like they kind of missed the mark. So I think in classic, especially the atmosphere, how it also makes sense with like the gold sinks and all that, the everything that we talk about with the GDKPs and all this stuff. I think it'd be cool if a player can get rewarded for killing another player. And maybe they get like a reward, like a bag or like a satchel or like their dog tags kind of say, right? Where it's like, okay, maybe they get like maybe one consume and some gold, whatever. And it would put a mark in the world that this player killed that player in this location. And it would be kind of like an alert, like, in hardcore WoW, when you die, it alerts the world, right? That this player died. So I think like bounties would be kind of like a cool little system to incentivize PvPers to go in the world, get more gold, fight other players, and get into engagements to not feel so scared. Because I've met a lot of players, they're just afraid to learn. They're afraid to learn their classes. They're afraid to even step into the PvP, mentality, and they're so PvE oriented. And there's nothing wrong with that. But I just think it'd be a fun little experiment where out of nowhere you're questing and you see a guy coming for you because he has a bounty on you, So I think it would be something fun of that nature to try out. And then I think lastly, a world where PvP and arenas and PvE have some type of actual legitimate split balancing right down the middle, where player can enjoy themselves, a warrior can enjoy themselves pumping in raid if that's what they wish to do. At the same time, they can go into PvP and still enjoy their class, but it doesn't need to feel to that magnitude where they're doing all this crazy superior amount of damage, but there's some type of actual legitimate balancing. It's the biggest, discussion I know a lot of WoW players have where we'll never know where we'll get with it, but it's just a dream. And I think that's like in my dream world, there is fun PvP balance for both melee and range. And melee doesn't have to feel like shit all the time because they're getting polyed for fucking 30 years. The same thing can happen, where a person feels like they're not sapped for fucking 45 seconds and there's nothing they can do. You roll with a mage rogue comp like you did in TBC, and then majority of the time you win. So I think that would be a very interesting perspective to see if they would implement stuff like that. And also just raids as well reworked. I think is another massive thing. For example, AQ. AQ has one of the worst trash out of every raid besides the dungeon, Sunken Temple, and Original Anniversary. I think AQ is absolutely clustered with trash. I know you can bring hunters and there's ways around it, so you can skip some of it. But for the most part, I am not a fan of all this trash. I do think there has to be some type of redesign to AQ to make it a little bit more fun for the players, but not remove the integrity and the fun of that raid as well. Because there is a group of people, maybe it might be small, that maybe do enjoy AQ. But I think in that would be my 2 cents I can add for right now. I'm sure there's 1,000 other ideas, but that's all I got right now.
Yeah.
Those are really nice quality of life changes. I actually like that from both of you. Those are some solid ones, like the barber shop. I like the undermined tram system, or like just the Zeppelin tower for the horde. So travel more often, more places. I do the quality of life changes that make the world slightly better are definitely good for the game. But this is the final question. Shobek, you could only add one new content, one new like phase system. So vanilla just after Nax is one final phase. What is that dream phase for you? What is the dream extra content in Classic Plus for you? It's a hard one, isn't it? you like me to go first or Tello to go first? What do you think?
Yeah.
Okay, Tello, do you want to give us your dream one or you want me to go?
Oh, I like the bonus phase of
Just
Classic
the
Plus.
final, like you only get one extra phase for Classic Plus. What would that be? Okay, I'll go because
Yeah,
it's
that's a tough one. That's a tough one. Like
Caverns of
just
Time,
one.
where we constantly get, a few new dungeons, a new raid, Molten Core in the past, Blackwing Lair in the past. You can just experience old versions of the world, new content that effectively, instead of having to design a brand new zone every time they're adding new content, they can reuse content so you can keep getting more and more content. Assuming we get the one final phase, I think Caverns of Time is the peak finality of the Classic Plus because it's infinite content. There would be some class changes, Paladin, prop paladins having taunt, warriors not being the best class. This is controversial, but I would remove world buffs. I fucking hate world buffs. I would completely take them out of the game. Aside from that, there'd be some slight quality of life changes, but for me, the big thing would be Caverns of Time.
Yeah, I disagree with that, but I mean, hey, shit, bro. I'll jump in. I got it.
Go right ahead.
I think what I would do would be the Dark Portal wouldn't be an extension to TBC. The Dark Portal will be its own fabricated land, and you could go through the Dark Portal, and it would be a leveling zone from 50 to 60. There'd be no Shadowwrath. It's just zones with new resources and new quests and new everything, and new reputation that would create horizontal gear progression. That would allow you to like just have different things, just different items and whatnot. And in there, you could go to the arenas and you could queue up for a 1v1, 1v1 and 2v2 arena. And all of the raids would be there, 40-man styled. So you'd have SSC, Karazhan, or SSC, whatever's in Hellfire Peninsula, Kel'Thalas, and you'd have Black Temple. So you'd go and kill Illidan. And you'd essentially experience TBC, but in the world of Azeroth, where it is not necessarily the new place where you go, but it's like an extension, the same way you get on a boat, the same way you get on a Zeppelin. And since it's stretched out as a leveling zone from 50 to 60, there's a lot of player interaction that's organic and more so fluid and not just a dead end point where you go for just a specific end game content. It's a little bit more like fleshed out, just as a normal place is, like Daenerys, Ungoro, Silithus. Kind of similar how those things are kind of like different leveling brackets, like all next to each other. And then from there you can kind of do whatever you want, because it's now like an extension without taking away. Add new world buffs. I think world buffs are the most important piece to this whole puzzle, because without world buffs, everyone just sits in a city and goes AFK or just gets teleported to the dungeon. So without world buffs, there is no world. I think world buffs, I would just do things to add more world buffs. Maybe do things to add like zone buffs or something like that, where now we have like resource territory like Eastern Plaguelands and stuff like that, where there's maybe an event and you have to go there and win it to for you to get the actual buff. So imagine Songflower, but you have to fight for it and you have to win it, and then you get Songflower buff, not just like a show up and click. That's probably what I would do.
Very cool.
I actually like that. I like your Hellfire Peninsula thing a lot. Like using the OG Hellfire Peninsula map they made back in 2002 or 1. That would be really solid, I think. That would be cool.
It would be all of Outlands. It wouldn't just be Hellfire Peninsula. I think it would be legitimately all of Outlands, and you would stretch it from like 40 to 50, or maybe 50 to 60 or 40 to 60. So like people go there and there's additional quests. There's just so much more. So all of those like sinkholes and stuff that where you feel like you don't know really where to go, you have just a plethora of like new quests, new everything that you can like go do, new dungeons, new quests to get you to 60 more streamlined and like more having fun with the adventure. And then bringing the 60s and endgame over there as well, while it's horizontal, not vertical, horizontal. So you do go up there, but you don't stay there. You go there for buffs from the dungeons, and you go there for raids, and you just kind of treat it the same way as you treat Azeroth. And it's not like this new thing to go brain rot in. And then you have now like an actual extension to the game that I think a lot of people would like, because there's so many raids there. There's so many raids and beautiful zones, and it's all by ground mount. Oh man, it'd be great.
So effectively, you're saying take TBC as a whole expansion, but don't make it the expansion. Make it like 40 to 60, 30 to 60, whatever. and then treat the raid scale down to 60 and use all that content as an extension to vanilla.
Yep.
So effectively Classic Plus it as a
Yep.
instead of so TBC is the Classic Plus, but just level 60.
Level 60, and you don't have Shadowwrath. The Shadowwrath does not exist. Or if it's there, it's a place where it's like a hostile quest hub. So it's like kind of how we were talking about the trains in like that neutral train, similar to the Booty Bay boat.
Mhm.
It's essentially a Booty Bay. Like Shadowwrath is Booty Bay, and you can go there and you can like kill for sure. Like it's super outlaw. Like you're out in the outlands. Like maybe there's even lesser guards. Like maybe it's like who knows? But that whole Kumbaya Alliance and Horde hanging out with each other, no, that's gone. Like it's World of Warcraft for a reason. Alliance versus
Interesting. I
Horde.
like it. It's a very curious take. I haven't heard of that one before, but I do like the idea of using all of TBC just as an extension to Classic.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's already
I
there.
would tweak
They
some
don't have to-
changes, but it's cool. I like that. What about
Yeah,
you,
it's really
Teller?
cool.
What is your changes? Your one thing.
I would like to see a lot of unused zones that are already in Azeroth that were never further expanded upon implemented, such as Hyjal. I think it would be cool to see the zone of Hyjal based on a level 60 cap, where we can see further of it explored and do different quests and have newer items implemented that we've never seen before that doesn't ground break the game like Season of Discovery did. Obviously where we're already at in the power scale of Phase 8. Another thing I think we haven't mentioned, and something my personal favorite, because if what I used to do all the time was spam Marathi Basins, and I love battlegrounds. I live for BGs. I really enjoy the atmosphere of being competitive, having a zone where we can capture that flag, get a rogue watching this, make a call out, and it feels like I'm playing some type of comp related thing where people enjoy it as well, and they're making call outs too. So what I mean by this is more battlegrounds that are based in Azeroth, that are not used from any other external sources. So maybe a battleground like Hyjal. There was supposed to be that implementation of a Hyjal battleground, and we never seen it. I would love that. I would love to see other further implementations of certain parts of the world that, they have in Azeroth that are unused for a battleground. For example, when they did Plunderstorm, they based it off of Arathi Highlands, am I correct? Where they have that like circle of where the BR was based. What if that was just truly in Classic Plus? That was not a battle royale, where you have the Horde at Hammerfall and you have the Alliance at the Stormgrave Keep, and there is an actual legitimate battle that happens. You have to kill the leaders of Hammerfall and kill the leaders of Stormgate Keep. I think that would be very interesting as well. So I would like to see more legitimate BGs based on the zones that are currently in the world, so players can feel like they're doing a fresh experience. And I also think another thing, low key, I would love to see is AV reworked. I think AV gets spammed too much with Keck or what is it, Drek or Keck? You know what I mean? Everybody's always laughing, right? And they're like, if you're not going to the end, that's it. I think it should matter that you kill the towers and the bosses get summoned and AVs actually have some real integrity to them and there's legitimate fun. And these BGs get reworked just like Warsong Gulch, fixing the timers, fixing the little jump spots where druids are abusing flag spamming. All these things I would love to see that PvP carries at the end, because at the end of the day, for me at least, I love PvE. I think it's the core of World of Warcraft, but at the same time, it's the community that funded the Warcraft hype in the older days on YouTube, where everybody was looking up like, wow, man, this dude's showing some new tech. What kind of PvP 360p montage is this guy doing? He's showing macros. What is this dude doing? And that's how you get all the big popular people. And now where we are at this day, and I feel like PvP is a core part of World of Warcraft. That is the integrity, it's the value, it's what carries. Obviously, look at Shobek streams already. I mean, look what everything that he does, carrying that passion, that emotion from, like I said earlier, a dying breed, the old age. And a lot of us as streamers, we try to do the same. And I just really feel like that if they head in that direction, catering more to the PvP endgame, catering more to the more battlegrounds, implementing the trams, having Hyjal unlocked, and a couple other fine fixes here and there, I think we'll have a beautiful game one day. But until that point, there's still issues that need to be addressed, and the fight must keep going, brothers.
Hope they cook.
Absolutely.
Hope they cook.
And we are going to end the stream here, unless you guys have anything you guys want to add as a finality.
No, I'm good. Thank you. Thank you for inviting. Thank you for the
Absolutely.
crash
Thank you
out.
very much. No, thank you very much for coming on, Shobek. It was amazing.
Yeah.
Some of the things you said were wild. I'm not gonna lie. Like I was like, what the hell? interesting
what?
as all shit. The Lord of the Rings segment. the
Lord of the Rings segment.
I think it's when you were talking about balls and wives.
Bro, we
But
got.
it wasn't anything bad. It was interesting. It was a good conversation to be had. So I'm really glad that you came on. Like having these conversations is super important. So thank you very much, Shobek, my man. Let everybody know where they can find you.
It's just my name, Shobek, baby. Or maybe even search Bankai. Maybe you can find me with that too.
You actually can find them by searching Bankai. That's kind of funny. But Shobek is an absolute legend. Once again, thank you for coming on. HelloJTello, let them know where they can find you.
HelloJTello, Hydration Nation, the Lidis Azeroth radio station. You know the deal. Catch me at the DGen hours. Much love to you. Much love to you.
And you guys can find me by just typing Classic Plus or Ebonhardt, honestly. But thank you all for watching. I will see you guys in the next episode with another special guest. Peace out, everybody.
Bye, guys.
Peace, amigo.
Thank you very much, Shobek. Peace, my man.
Later.
Thank you, Mr. Shobek.
I appreciate you being on. Peace.
Yeah, it was fun. GG's.
Absolutely.
GG's, amigo.